It's WFUV and WFUV HD, New York. Listener supported public media from Fordham, the Jesuit University of New York. Right here on 90.7 FM, WFUV.org, and WFUVSports.org. This is One on One, New York's longest running sports call-in show on 90.7 FM, WFUV.org, and WFUVSports.org.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to One on One WFUV production. I'm Chris Persianen here with Jack Roche, Thomas Aiello, and Alex Woles on the edit and the production. Here tonight to bring you New York's longest running call-in show for sports. Lots of good local topics to touch on. I'm excited not only to get into them, but to get into them with this group of guys. So, Jack, Thomas, it's great to be here. Jack, how are you?
Listen, I know we're not going to talk about it during the show, so this is the chance I've got. I'm doing exceptionally well following my guy Jason Tatum's 50-point performance. I'm feeling real good about that. Do I expect them to win the series? Absolutely not. But seeing that happen last night reminded me of why I'm a Celtics fan.
It certainly had to have been the glimmer of hope you were waiting for. I mean, an unfortunate end to your guys' season with Brown going down, one of my favorite players in the league personally. I'm a Jaylen Brown guy, Jack. And for that to happen, I was at Game 72 at MSG against Boston, where it was the Maine Red Claws, or the Maine Celtics as they go by now.
Celtics. No more Red Claws.
Pretty much going up against Tom Thibodeau's New York Knickerbockers. And it was a win the Knicks needed. It was a win the Knicks got in more dramatic fashion than I would have liked, which was proof to me that Celts have something going on still and are not worth, removing all your hope from. Tatum, Brown, young stars will continue to shine. Had to have been encouraging, as you said. Just lots of exciting games around the NBA. Other injuries to touch on, more recent, Dante DiVincenzo, for example, one we'll get into the impact of. The other series, Lakers, the Nets, Clippers, lots of stars in question. Kawhi and Paul George right now under the spotlight. Luka under the spotlight for a different reason. A bit more of a positive reason there in Dallas's regard. And of course, we're going to get into the team that is currently up against those birds down in Atlanta, New York Knicks. We have Anthony Donahue, a.k.a. Anthony MSG, who's going to be joining us on today's show to talk about the New York Knicks. And we also have, after we get into some MLB action later, we'll talk Mets, we'll talk Yankees, both local teams. Going to have Ron Blomberg on, first MLB DH. It's an honor to be able to have him on the show, and we're going to be getting to talk to him a little later on. So excited for that conversation to get going as well. We got to talk about fans and sports right now. Lots around the landscape. Not just one arena, not just one team. People were cooped up. Jack, and coming back out with ferocity, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, looking at what we've got slated to talk about today, I want to say it's a great time to be a sports fan, and it seems like some of these guys are getting a little overzealous. I mean, we've all been cooped up for the past year, and we've got baseball to talk about, we've got basketball, we've got hockey. Seems like some of these fans are getting a little too rambunctious, and it's something that needs to be addressed. And I really hope to not see more of that type of behavior going forward, because it's just such a blessing to get all the games that we're watching right now.
To be back in a sea of bodies, questionably, at Madison Square Garden. Had to throw the questionably in there because it gets packed and loud, and the smell becomes questionable at a certain point. But I never thought I never thought I'd be so grateful to be packed in between hundreds of other people, unable to move or breathe, trying to get out of Madison Square Garden. Game 2 the other night, to be able to be in the building. I had the sting seats, as people like to call them, all the way in the back. And it was almost perfect because getting to see the whole crowd react, considering that it was the first time in maybe 7 games that I've been to MSG this year now that there were more than 3,000 people in attendance. And it wasn't just 4 or 5, it was 15,000 orange and blue faithful, screaming their heads off. Less of the corporate crowd, more of the, college crowd. And we're loud, us college fans, lots of support for our boys out there. It's nice to be there at the Garden. It's nice to be back at a sports event around other sports fans. It feels right. It feels as if you can zoom out, that at least some sort of peace has been restored. If the streets of New York are back in pandemonium post game.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the atmosphere inside of MSG. You know better than me, but outside of MSG post win was just insane. Like it is so. As someone that sometimes the Knicks get under my skin, it is so. I don't know. It's just great to see the energy coming from that place and legitimate fans just showing that kind of passion for their team.
I love that angle too, because a lot of fans of other teams who have been fortunate enough to see a little more success than the fans of the New York Knicks have had the opinion, whether it be online or wherever, that Knicks fans need to relax because this is just they won a playoff game. They were having a parade. My response to that is that if you think that that's a parade, you have no idea what New York City is going to look like after this team wins a playoff series. I was standing with Julito McCullum, known from The Wire, and he told me, looking out at that crowd, not only that he had never seen anything like it, he just kept saying, "Imagine if we win a series." And he'd just look out at the crowd, look back at me. "Imagine if we win a series." Look back, fire trucks are coming through. We thought they were going to clear us out. Sirens, lights, windows down. Let's go, Knicks. Let's go. They made it so much worse. The police officers were livid. They called in the fire department to help them out, and they made it worse. The streets of it was 33rd and 7th. 33rd was crazy. And I have to say, after coming out of a period of time of over a year where, you're watching Netflix or you're watching a movie and you see a bunch of people together, you have a little reaction. You're like, is that okay? That's okay. They could do that. There could be that many people close together. To be in a sea of hundreds of people, as I was saying, and to feel safe and to feel in my heart at home was really powerful. Just the fact that it was possible, the fact that it was happening, the fact that I was there, unreal. So yeah, I'm on your side with Knicks fans. Let them enjoy their success. I mean, House of Highlights, ESPN, the NBA sent cameramen to the game pretty much just to cover the post-game madness, because they know that those New York crowds are a ticket to virality. And I got in on some of the camera action, going around trying to spot, guys standing with lanyards and big cameras, making a ruckus. It's pure. The energy is pure, man. It's great to have back in New York City.
That's a beautiful sentiment. You talking about like the fraternity of Knicks fans and, celebrating after a win. But let's get 2 wins before we start talking about a next round, about a playoff, series victory. Because I know that you get that first taste in what, like 8 years? Is that
Yeah.
sound right?
The first playoff win since 8 years. It's the first appearance in 8 years. It's, it's not even like they went back and got swept. I know they did. They did go back and get swept. Yeah, no, they did do that. That happened. Oh man. Oh brother. Yeah, it's authentic. It's real. And it's just smile inducing. It's just smile inducing. Like look at yourself right now. I know we're on the airwaves, but for our listeners at home who cannot see, there's a nice smile on Mr. Roche's face because the thought of hundreds of New Yorkers together in solidarity, celebrating a team that represents them in how they play, in where they play. If you've ever stepped foot in New York City, you know how special that is, right? This is the city where you can get on a subway, you can deliver an entire speech, and then perform a musical number, and a total of 0 people will have looked up at you to see what you were doing because it's just part of the day. And for hundreds of people in New York City, everyone's always in a rush. They're late. They're up to something, and you're keeping them, and they got to go somewhere because whatever they're doing is somehow always more important than whatever's going on at the moment, and everyone's going crazy. For hundreds and thousands, 15,000 people to have their objective that night be to walk in, see a Knicks win, to get that, to celebrate it. You felt that special feeling in the streets. Game 3 in Atlanta, we'll get into it a bit, especially when we talk to Anthony. We'll have to ask him some questions about the game. But Game 4, feeling confident going into that, and it's gonna be a series. We've got a real playoff series here.
Chris, you're making me want to buy a Julius Randle jersey all of a sudden.
Listen. I won't stop you. I said when we hired Tom Thibodeau that I said when the Knicks hired Tom Thibodeau, I was of the opinion that it was a matter of when I would want to run through a brick wall for the team and not if, because regardless of who they signed, and if Tom Thibodeau is the head coach, you're going to be ready to run through a brick wall. And you're seeing now it's happening. This team is delivering. They got themselves to the biggest stage when no one expected them to. And, even if from unexpected places, in the case of we might be watching the NBA's most fascinating career arc still unfold in Derrick Rose. He's been the second best player on the team. So what a fascinating team to break the streak of being bad, frankly. And what a great one for fans to support. It's going to be a great show tonight, getting into the Knicks, getting into the rest of the NBA, talking about the MLB, talking around Blomberg, talking about fans, talking about the NHL, and just a lot of analysis to come. I have to say, there's a lot to talk about that I'm excited to talk about. Jack Roche, Thomas Aiello, and I will be back on one-on-one to get into these topics. Next up, the New York Knicks. We'll be back.
Be sure to follow WFUV Sports on all of our social media platforms at WFUV Sports on Twitter, at WFUV_sports on Instagram, and WFUV Sports on Facebook and YouTube. WFUV Sports, home to New York's longest-running sports call-in show and the flagship station of Fordham Athletics.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to One-on-One, production of WFUV Sports. I'm Chris Persianen, here with Jack Roche and Thomas Aiello. Now to talk about the New York Knickerbockers. It's currently the town's topic. I mean, I think we all know that when the Knicks are even just giving any sort of reason to be in the news, they're going to be in the news. They're going to be the news. Happens to be, well, as of last night, not super positive, but there's a positive reason to have the team in the news, and it's that they're in the NBA playoffs for the first time in 8 years. They're in the first round, matched up against the Atlanta Hawks, and have shown a little bit of struggle and a little bit of fight as well in these first 3 games. New York still in Atlanta, going into game 4 tomorrow, will find themselves down 2-1. I don't think it's the worst spot for this team to be in. And I think out of all the teams in the league, if you want to rank them by fight, if you want to rank NBA teams by resilience and by passion or whatever, rule of thumb, have a Tom Thibodeau team top 5. So if there's going to be a squad that could, come back from the 2-1 deficit, that's not necessarily killing them, but it is in their faces as of right now. This New York Knicks squad wouldn't be the worst of bets. They showed game 2 that they can take a loss, they can take a punch, they can regroup, come back, give one back. Game 3, they took another punch in a more decisive fashion than in game 1. Game 4, got to come out, in my opinion, punch back. So if the Knicks go down 3-1, I think there's real cause for concern. 2-1, this is how playoff series go, and there's going to be times where you're up, there's going to be times where you're tied, there's going to be times where you're down. It's important to remember to breathe through all of them. Jack, I have to go to you first to get a Bostonites perspective on New York and Atlanta's battle. Give me the unbiased shakedown on how you think this series is going so far. Just anything that surprises you from either team.
Well, it is worth mentioning that I'm in enemy territory right now, talking to you and Aiello. I was definitely not surprised, but so happy, as we mentioned before, to see the intensity and the energy in and around Madison Square Garden. But a surprise for me has been Julius Randle's struggles, especially as they've even thrown John Collins at him at times, who is not known for his defense by any means.
Fair assessment.
And we're seeing him in these kind of ISO situations, his back to the hoop. And it doesn't really seem like a recipe for success right now. They're down 2-1, playing on the road. This is a huge game. You mentioned the importance of winning this game. You don't want to go down 3-1. So I'm really curious to see how they adjust, or if Randall is able to improve on his performances these past 3 games to give them, a much needed spark.
Absolutely. I want to go to Thomas to ask about Julius Randle's struggles because personally, I watch him play and I see a guy who is very good at basketball, is not worse at basketball in my mind because of this series, but who just figured out last year that he's capable of being a number one option, just figured out this year how to be a number one option, and is now in the NBA playoffs where the game slows down and the court shrinks and every possession matters a whole lot more than they seemed to in the regular season. You can't play around with a single minute or a single second of the game. Julius Randle as the number one option seems to be struggling, and I don't know if it's the orange and blue contacts that I'll have forever, implanted in front, blocking my eyesight. But I'm of the opinion that, like, if this means that he's a number 2, that it's totally okay because this team wasn't supposed to be here in the first place. I want to go to a New York fan to ask about Randall because I have to say, there's already a trade Randall faction forming amongst the fan base. It's reactionary is what it is, but it's forming.
Okay. Knicks fans did the trade Randall thing last year. Don't do it again. Please don't do it again. He just won everyone over by not being a Beyblade or whatever nickname Basketball Reference gave him. He reportedly blocked Knicks pages. All of that's been undone. He's fine. I think where he struggles.
I will say that the blocking Knicks pages has not been undone. There's one very famous Knicks page that is still blocked by their all-star. Fun little nugget.
Oh, boy. But I think the problem with him is the lack of just not being in the playoffs for his whole career. This is the first time he's gone. And this is the first time he's on a team where he's basically has to do everything. He's the engine, he's the passer, the playmaker, the scorer, the rebounder. He's not the defender, but Randall's asked to do a whole lot on a team that lacks skill players. The Atlanta Hawks, who are the antithesis of the Knicks in pretty much every way, they don't play very good defense compared to the Knicks. And offensively, they are an 8-9 man show when everyone's hot. They have 7 guys, in my opinion, who are capable of scoring 10 points or more a game. And last night that was displayed. Everyone on the Hawks that started scored over 10, and they got bench help from Gallinari, who scored 10. Kevin Huerter, or Gallinari had 12. Huerter had 10, and Lou Will only had 9. I guess he must have had too many lemon pepper chicken wings before the game might have slowed him down. But let me say this about Randall. He goes 8 for 8 on the free throws, which
they were back in Atlanta. They were back in Atlanta.
They were. And the Hawks crowd, unlike the Knicks fans who have been menaces to society as of late, the Hawks fans, they're still a little out there, okay? They're not exactly the nicest people in the world. I think we can sort of say that when their team is really pouring it on. Now, the Knicks only lost by 11. And no one that stepped up in game 2, I mean, Burks, Obi Toppin, Reggie Bullock, RJ Barrett, those game 2 heroes were nowhere to be found. My concern here is, do you have enough fight in you to compete with this overwhelming Atlanta machine on offense? That's my fear, because Derrick Rose is great. He had dropped 30 last night. As my phone goes off, do you have enough firepower on defense to keep up with Trae Young? And do the Knicks have enough fight to not let the Hawks just overwhelm them with threes and dunks and lobs and other things that you can do on offense when you have skill players? That's my fear. And from last night, I've been proven right so far on that front. I'm terrified that the Hawks are just going to annihilate the Knicks in Game 4.
Can I just add off of that real quick? Knicks shot 30 free throws last night. Hawks only shot 8. And there wasn't really a point in that game after halftime where I was like, the Knicks are like, did you think the Knicks were in that game in the second half?
No.
Mr. Thomas?
Nope.
Yes.
I didn't.
When the Knicks were down 13 points at the start of the third quarter, not at the start, but in the first couple minutes, it was about a 13-point deficit. I said that I wouldn't count them out as long as the deficit wasn't any bigger than 13 at the end of and I think they were losing by exactly 13 at the end of the third, which is what left me to keep hope. I don't know if it was playing basketball and the fact that I was a literal 3-point only type of player, and that I see deficits in how many threes you need to recover it.
I do that too, Chris.
But to be down 13 and to have Alec Burks, Reggie Bullock, Emmanuel Quickley, and Derrick Rose on your team, like you have offense. The Knicks traded for Derrick Rose to address the 4 to 5 minute stretches in which they couldn't put a point on the board. So think about this. This was a team that had 4 to 5 minute stretches where they couldn't put a point on the board regularly. It was like, we're entering one of these again. The whole fan base knew. And we'd go half a quarter without being able to score a single point. It was very frustrating. Derrick Rose was acquired mid-season, and they were planning it from before the season started to help provide the team with the boost of offense they needed. They finally got Detroit's asking price down to a place they were comfortable with, pulled the trigger instantly. And you've seen the benefits. Derrick Rose finished as a 6th man of the year candidate and started this season as a cooked product. So funny how that works. I mean, Detroit, man. According to everyone else, yes. Not according to me. Not according to me. You ask 28 NBA head coaches besides Dwayne Casey and Tom Thibodeau before this season if Derrick Rose still has it, and they say no.
Oh my goodness! Wow, wow.
Detroit said that he could not play more than 23 minutes a game because his production would fall off, and he averaged 23.2 minutes a game in Detroit. They were very strict about it.
They wonder why they're never going to get out of NBA purgatory. Like
Tom Thibodeau puts a little faith in the guy, and you got a 6th man of the year candidate out of him. I mean, the Knicks are in a position, as Thomas was saying, where they're getting a lot of punches from this Atlanta team. They have to be able to have the fight to stay in it. I think they have it. I think it's about capturing lightning in a bottle here, because this team, again, not supposed to win a playoff series, and yet they have a chance to. They need Julius to heat up. They need Julius to heat up, period. Because you saw the second half of game 2. Julius Randle, in the first half, unable to get it going in the half court. Totally. He gets going within the flow of the game, and all of a sudden, Julius is hot. Reggie's open. Reggie's hot. RJ's open because Reggie and Julius are hot. RJ's hot. D Rose comes in. Now they're screwed. Like, it's that simple. It takes Julius turning it on to get another guy to turn it on, and the dominoes fall real quick after that. The problem is that the Knicks don't have another guy besides Julius. Brooklyn Nets have 3 guys that they can say, hey, you go get something started. Golden State Warriors, not even in the playoffs, they have the best shooter of all time to say, hey, you go get things started. The New York Knicks don't have – they have over 30-year-old Derrick Rose to say, hey, go get things started. It's working. He's playing well. Can't be it. So I want to touch quickly before we wrap up this segment on some help that the Knicks might find from within. We're hearing about Mitchell Robinson. There was apparently a glitch in CBS's system prior to game 2 that listed him as a game time decision. I looked into said glitch. I poked around. And apparently even if it was a glitch, there's nothing going on with Mitchell Robinson. If you watch the video in which Kyden Randall presents him with his MIP trophy, Mitch is in there on the court in a t-shirt working out with the team. It's concerning detective work that I noticed that, but he was there. He was there. And I'm hearing that he's looking good. He's looking, closer to healthy, whatever it is. So those are the rumblings I'm getting from around the team. I just have to ask, if you guys are the Knicks, do you try bringing Robinson back against Atlanta?
You don't rush it, because I don't know if the biggest changes that need to be made are what you've mentioned. Like Derrick Rose can't be taking 21 shots per game. And it definitely gives you help with, against a guy like Clint Capella, but I don't think you rush it and potentially like force an injury or re-aggravating something in, a situation where it might not make the biggest impact, because they need help on offense. Is his 8 points per game going to give you that? I don't know.
I'm on the fence with it. Honestly, we were talking about this before the show started. And Chris, you brought up a good point saying if they make it to the second round, then they're going to start looking into it. But if he hasn't come back by now, in my opinion, they're down 2-1. I'm not going to say all indications say they're going to be down 3-1, because I just don't think that that's the full case. But if they get to a point where they don't feel it'll really benefit them, and if they don't think him coming back in this high leverage of a situation where he's going to be asked to, guard Clint Capella, who's probably 50 pounds heavier than you and probably is most likely a better center than Robinson right now. On top of the fact
Capella is a better player than Robinson right now.
I
you
think
can make that
agree.
statement confidently.
And we're also going to ask you to just disrupt the Hawks. Oh, and we need you to throw dunks down. I don't know if that would be worth compromising him, because we have to remember, guys, he's going to get paid, and it's coming up like in the summertime. So the Knicks need to think about, are they going to pay this young center they acquired in the second round? And he was pretty much written off his rookie year, but has wildly exceeded the expectation. Is it worth, from Robinson's standpoint and from a business perspective, do you make the business decision to sit, get healthy, and get your money if you're him? And for the Knicks, do you go, you know what, we can get better?
Mitchell Robinson wants to play. I'll tell you that.
He does. If he wants to play,
he wants to be on the court.
The Knicks need to also think about their longevity of this team.
Of course. I'm just saying, if the Knicks told Robinson you can suit up for game 4, he'd start if he could.
He'll suit up. I have no doubt that he won't. I just feel that for him, if he wants to get paid, I would make the business decision. But for the Knicks as well, you have to think of longevity, because in the NBA, we see today Kristaps Porzingis, who we're going to be talking about later. He's kind of sort of got rushed back, I think, a little bit. And he had multiple knee surgeries last year and this year, and he doesn't look the same. We look at Anthony Davis, who, gets beat up literally every game by whoever he plays. And he just marches out there. But sometimes I wonder if he's fully healthy. LeBron is another example, but you guys know where I'm going with this. Is it worth it to come back now? In my opinion, no. I feel that him sitting and just taking it easy, that would just make the most sense in the world. They can retool for the next season. They can draft trades, whatever they do. I feel it would be better if they just think ahead for this situation.
Gotcha. I'm of the opinion where I think if you start going down in this series for real, 3-1 or something, you don't even think about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Just. However, if you go and you win game 4 and it's 2-2, and you have all the clearance in the world from the trainers, all the clearance in the world from Mitch and Tibbs, and Mitch has worked with the team. Tibbs thinks he looks up to speed. Everyone's with Mitch coming back, and you want to talk about bringing back the spirit of the old Knicks? You want to pull a Willis Reed, bring this guy out of the tunnel? I'm serious, because that
you
would,
think so?
in Atlanta, make a statement. There's a lot more Knicks fans down there than we
Chris,
think. It's
you're
loud on
speaking
TV.
from the Knicks Bible, man. Speaking from the Bible. Shout out to Alan Hahn. I ordered
I
the
love
book,
it.
but you're speaking right from his Bible.
I've read the same book.
Such a good book. Highly
I
recommend.
love it. I love it myself. We'll be back after this break to talk to Knicks superfan Anthony Donahue. He's at every game. He would know better than anyone what's going on with this team. We'll see you guys right after this break here on One on One to talk to Anthony MSG.
One on One has a brand new YouTube channel. Subscribe to WFUV Sports to catch our simulcast Saturday nights and get notifications so you never miss another show. Miss the show? You can find on-demand segments, interviews, and highlights every week. WFUV Sports, home to New York's longest-running sports call-in show and the flagship station of Fordham Athletics.
All right, everybody, we are here, Jack Roche and I, back on One, New York's longest running sports call-in show, and we are lucky enough to be joined now by my friend, Knicks superfan, pigeon catcher extraordinaire, and every Knicks fan knows him, Anthony Donahue, Anthony MSG, here to talk to us now about not just the game 3 last night, but game 1 and game 2 here at the Garden as well. Ant, how are you, man?
What's up, Chris? Thanks so much for having me, guys. Really appreciate it. I'm doing okay. A little stressed after last night's game, but of course, going into last night's game in Atlanta as a fan, my goal, and it's still my goal, is to get one down there. So there's no need to panic just yet. Are there causes for concern? Oh, damn right there is. But there's no need to panic yet. You go in tomorrow afternoon, you get a dub, and then all of a sudden the Knicks are back in control of the series, because then 2 of the next 3 home games would be at Madison Square Garden. But easier said than done.
Absolutely. And you and I were there, part of the post-game pandemonium, as our guy CP calls it. It was a scene in New York City. You know, you just said coming back to New York is going to be important, but I have to ask directly, like, as someone who's been to Knicks games for decades, this crowd, the volume, inside, outside, how does it compare?
Well, I've been to a lot of big Knicks games, playoffs, regular season, the last 20, almost 30 years. I've never heard a crowd so loud, and I was at the playoffs versus Miami, Indiana, first round versus Toronto back in 2000. That was amazing. I've never heard such a louder crowd, because obviously it's a lot of young kids. It's a lot of younger people at the games. A lot of the Wall Street crew are probably staying home right now. Maybe they're waiting until the finals or next year. So it's definitely the loudest crowd I've ever experienced at the Garden, but also the most different crowd.
I was hoping that just off of that energy that the Knicks players were able to thrive off of, how important is that going to be for a guy like Julius Randle, who's kind of struggled over these past 2 games?
I think kind of is an understatement. He's struggled since the series started. Definitely a little worried. I mean, my concern is with Julius Randle. He had a spectacular season. There's no getting around that. I'm not giving up on him by no means. But it's definitely concerning. I wasn't surprised he played bad in game 1. I mean, he really wasn't good in game 2. He was better in the second half, of course, helped lead the Knicks to a win. But he was horrible last night in Atlanta. He was absolutely horrible. Can't buy a bucket. And I know some people are blaming. It's not Tibbs' fault. Like, Julius Randle is supposed to be a star player. Julius Randle is supposed to be an all-NBA player. Julius Randle gets MVP chance every game. You can't do this. Like, you can't. Like, he is letting us down. Now, I'm not giving up on him, but right now, I mean, RJ Barrett hasn't been great either. We haven't gotten much from Reggie Bullock. If you look when the Knicks are successful, Reggie always gives you a couple threes early in the game. Even late in the game, he hit that big 3 on that Sunday afternoon versus New Orleans to extend the winning streak to 6 games. But
Yes.
yeah, Julius Randle's been terrible. And I have a theory about it that I don't want to make public yet, but
I'm
I
excited.
might be right about it.
Well, now I'm just curious, so we'll have
About
to
my
talk.
theory?
But now I'm just not. You've piqued my interest, but
Can I tell you my theory privately?
no, we'll talk in regards to.
You want me to break? I hope I'm wrong about that. You want me to just tell you my theory?
Go ahead, Ed.
I want to be wrong about it. I hope I am right. I'm not one like there's some fans that would rather be like, let's say you're a fan, you love the Knicks, and you say that Knicks are going to lose tonight. You almost want to lose so you can say you're right. I don't want to be right about this. I want to be dead wrong. There's an album called by Tribe Called Quest called The Low End Theory. Well, there's an album that may be coming out soon by Julius Randle called The Empty Gym Theory.
Uh-oh.
Where I just think, and I want to be dead wrong. Because I don't want to be right about this.
The shooting spike?
The shooting, it's just different playing basketball in an empty gym. I'm sorry, it is. It is like, even like not comparing myself to an NBA player, but it's different when you're playing pickup and then you're playing in a tournament in front of 200 people, right? So I don't know. I have this, I hope I'm wrong. And I don't want to be right. Let me make that extremely clear. But 3 games in a row like this, and I don't know, I feel like he didn't play great in Phoenix, right? Remember, I was at that game, but I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Right.
That was 10,000 people. I don't know, man. It's a little weird. And also, again, I think Julius can handle it. I think a lot of praise has come his way, and maybe it's been too much. Like Fat Joe having him on his Instagram Live, calling him the king of New York. Come on, Fat Joe. That's too much. That's too much right now. You can't be calling a man the king of New York when he hasn't even won a playoff game yet. And that's not Julius's fault. That's not his fault.
No, it's not.
It's too much. It's too much.
But I got you. And that leads into my next question. The Knicks, and you and I know well, we're not supposed to be here.
No, not at all.
But when you get to the playoffs, you're in the playoffs.
Wait, time out. What did you think of that theory, by the way?
You know what? I think you're on to something, because we're seeing a lot of the bubble guys from last year look a little deflated, to pick a word carefully,
and
this year.
Thing, not to cut you off, but just, one thing I don't want to see also, and I saw a few tweets about this, how Tibbs wore him down. Stop.
Oh.
Stop. I know that's the narrative with Tom Thibodeau ever since Derrick Rose got hurt in 2012. Stop. That he's 27 years old. He just had a week off. It's got nothing to do with Tibbs. Now, if you want to crucify Tibbs for maybe some decision making, sure. I'm not gonna. You can. It has nothing, and I repeat, nothing to do with Tibbs working him too hard. Zero. I hope he comes out and has 40 tomorrow. I'm rooting for him. But I
feel you.
Scared I could
bubble guys. We got bubble teams. I mean, the Miami Heat are about to be swept in the first round.
They're down 0-3, huh? That's crazy.
Milwaukee's for real this year.
They've been for real for 3 or 4 years. They just haven't
got. But Drew is one heck of a difference maker.
When you add Drew Holiday to Chris Middleton and Giannis, of course, you're going to be way better.
So that kind of leads me into one last thing I wanted to get your take on before I throw it to Jack for any last questions. I mean, Giannis was a number 1 and struggled in the playoffs, right? Randle, Knicks, like I was saying, weren't really supposed to be here. But when you're in the playoffs, you got to look at your team like a playoff team. You got to say, all right, you got to have a number 1, you got to have a number. And the people that are fitting into those roles for the Knicks right now are not necessarily doing the greatest of jobs at those given roles.
No.
I'm not freaking out because I think those people weren't ready to fill those roles in the first place. I just want to know how you're feeling. Like, is Randall in a Giannis situation where if he gets another guy, he's going to be a problem? Or
I mean, Randall's a really good player. Randall's been a really good player since he's been in the league. He missed his first year with LA. He played really good next to Anthony Davis in New Orleans. He was obviously terrible in the 2019-2020 season. I think one thing we've learned about Julius Randle, even the last 2 weeks of the regular season till now, and this is not a knock, he's a guy. He's not the guy. And that's okay. That's okay. He's not the, and that's not Julius's fault either. He's a guy.
It's very hard to be a Batman in the NBA.
Yeah.
It's okay to be a Robin.
And
that's all right.
Credit him for what he did all year. But I have no problem with re-signing Julius. We can talk about the money stuff in the next month or in 2 months.
Yeah, that's for later.
Bring him back on a 4 or 5 year deal because the Knicks do need stability. But he's not some superstar. But I don't think he ever was, and that's okay. That's not a knock. If I say you're not a superstar, that's not a knock. He could be a perennial all-star the next 6-7 years. Well, not if he plays like he did games 1, 2, and 3. I hope he comes out tomorrow and drops 40. Like he needs to. Maybe not 40, but obviously we'll talk about Julius Randle's offseason situation later on down over the summer. But it's definitely concerning. And I don't think it's like some of his misses are horrible. And again, playing in full arenas now, not playing in empty gyms.
Yep. So 2019, Randall has that type of rough season. I'm not getting that same vibe from now. I feel like I feel more confident in seeing him fail almost because I think that this is a position that he's just not ready to be in. It's really hard to be a number one option on a playoff team when the floor shrinks, when every second matters, when your rotation's changing up because you just figured out your starting point guard was putting you in a hole. It's rough. So, Jack, I want to
think last night, if Elfrid started, we're down 30 in the first quarter. So, but the one thing I would change, and obviously Tibbs knows more basketball than all of us combined, is I still like Derek with that second unit. I didn't love Alec Burks being the point guard. He didn't shoot the ball well last night. What I would do is, and I don't love Frank at all. I don't love him. But I'm starting Frank at that point guard because Elfrid was only playing, 12 to 15 minutes a game?
Yes, sir.
So my starting lineup tomorrow I'd go back to Noel at center. Noel was great yesterday. He kept us in the game with those free throws. Only missed like 2 or what? Only missed 2 free throws out of the 12 he took. So what I'm doing tomorrow is I'm putting Noel back in the starting lineup. I'm starting Frank at the 1, even though Frank isn't exactly, Isaiah Thomas. But you start Frank, and then you keep that second unit exactly the same. And then you give Frank the Elfrid minutes, which is only, no more than 15. That's what I'm doing tomorrow.
So is game 4 going to be more about making adjustments or just playing better?
Playing better. I mean, it's the playoffs, so you'll make some adjustments, and I'm sure Tom Thibodeau and the Knicks coaching staff and players will. It's about playing better. RJ Barrett had -5 points, last night. Julius Randle was terrible. Gotta play better. Adjustments short. Adjustments is an easy thing to say. You're trying to be smart. Play better. Play better and you win.
I wanted to give you an opportunity, whether it was the podcast, whether it's your Instagram, your Twitter, to plug, promote anything you've been working on, anything you've got going on that you wanted to promote on the airwaves. So
yeah, for sure. You can follow me on social media, Twitter and Instagram, Anthony MSG. I'm always up to something. Probably not too many events this year till next year, but I'm always up to new things, the Knicks, shows, content, interviews, events. So just check me out and you never know what's next.
It's always around. If you're at MSG, you might see him. If you're at a Knicks game, you will see him.
By the way, I'm so glad I didn't go.
Oh man, that was. Listen, game 4, Knicks got to come back and get a win.
I think the Knicks win game 4. I
agree.
Here's my prediction for the series: win game 4, win game 5, lose game 6, and game 7. No prediction yet.
At home at MSG, predictionless. I love it.
I think But yeah, I think the Knicks win tomorrow, but I think they'll win game 5, and then we lose game 6 in Atlanta, and then back at the Garden. And when we're playing, playing with house money.
Pick 'em game 7 at the Garden.
Yep, that's what I think.
And thank you so much for the time. Thank you for your energy around the team and for everything. It was an honor to have you join us. It was an honor to get your insights. So thank you very much, Ant.
It was an honor to have you ask me. And shout out to the legend, Bobby C. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. We'll be back, Jack Roche and Chris Persianen, after this break, one-on-one, longest running college show in New York sports, WFUV. We'll see you soon.
One-on-One has a brand new YouTube channel. Subscribe to WFUV Sports to catch our simulcast Saturday nights and get notifications so you never miss another show. Miss the show? You can find on-demand segments, interviews, and highlights every week. WFUV Sports, home to New York's longest-running sports call-in show and the flagship station of Fordham Athletics. Sure to check out all of our latest podcasts on WFUVSports.org or wherever you get your shows, including NFL Friday, Nosebleeds, Pick and Pod, 5 on 3, College Gridiron, and FUV FC. Also, our newest edition, Off the Air, diving into the station's legacy with its most prominent alumni. WFUV Sports, home to New York's longest-running sports call-in show and the flagship station of Fordham Athletics. It's WFUV and WFUV HD, New York. Listener-supported public media from Fordham, the Jesuit University of New York. Right here on 90.7 FM, WFUV.org, and WFUVSports.org. This is One-on-One, New York's longest-running sports call-in show on 90.7 FM, WFUV.org, and WFUVSports.org.
Welcome back to WFUV's One-on-One, New York's longest-running sports call-in show. Alongside Chris Persianen and Jack Roche, I'm Thomas Aiello, and today we're going to bring you headlines. Now, guys, it's the NBA playoffs. There has been mania, madness, drama, parody, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
In New York and in Los Angeles and Texas with the Texas two-step and the Battle of Los Angeles, whatever you want to say. We're going to start with the Texas two-step. We're going to travel down to Dallas. And we're not going to talk about the Cowboys. We're going to talk about the Dallas Mavericks and the Los Angeles Clippers last night. Clippers, despite being absolutely humiliated, roasted, ridiculed in the last, I want to say, 72 hours or so by media and sports people on Twitter.
Yep.
Get a victory over the Dallas Mavericks, 118-108. Kawhi Leonard, 36 points on 13-17 shooting, going 8 for 9 in the first half, so turning into a super scoring humanoid. And Paul George, who we've given a lot of flack for being way off P, pandemic P, C3PO, Star Wars, bring them all. He had 29 last night, and the Clippers finally getting some help from their supporting cast with Reggie Jackson grabbing 16 points, Marcus Morris, the former one-time Knick, 15 points, hitting 3 threes down the stretch. Now, guys, Jack, I'm going to start with you. The Los Angeles Clippers, who people make fun of for being this widely flawed team outside of their 2 stars, and everyone's saying, "Oh, they're going to get swept in the first round," and like Luka Doncic, he owns the team now. They stole a game in Dallas. Now that's hard to do to an home team when they've got all the momentum riding on them. Do you think the Clippers are going to come back in this series and win it? Do you think Kawhi is going to just say, "Screw it, I'll do it by myself if I have to"? Can the Clippers come back?
Here's what I'll say first. Before the show started, I mentioned to our producer, Alex Wolz, that even if they were down 3-0, my money's still on Los Angeles. And he agreed with me. I think that they, I think you'd agree with me that they should be the better team. I think they will win this series. I think we saw last night that, just what Kawhi Leonard is capable of. And when you've got guys like Morris chipping in, you've got the BC alum, Reggie Jackson, and even a guy with the basketball IQ of Rajon Rondo playing well, chipping in with 8 assists.
Plus 22 last night, if I can interject.
That's Rondo. No, I mean, I love him. He's one of my favorite players in the league, and I think he's going to be really important to them if they want to make a deep playoff run. I think they're capable of getting to that Western Conference Finals. I think they'll, ultimately have to go through the other team in town, the Lakers. But if they're able to make it that far, I think that Kawhi says, let's run it back another year, at least another year. But if they get bounced this round, next round, they're definitely going to be, in my opinion, some rumblings of him, talking to other teams.
And Jack, I want to just kind of talk about the free agency thing a little bit before we get to the Mavericks, because looking at the Clippers situation here on my paper, Kawhi's got a $34 million player option. He can choose to decline or accept this coming summer. Paul George is on the books for 3 more years, and he's going to be getting north of $40 million.
Mm-hmm.
Luke Kennard, who they paid $12 million plus a year to just get DMPs, apparently.
That hasn't even started, by the way, that extension.
That kicks
for next year.
Right. That's going to kick in. So he's going to be on the books for 3 or 4 years.
4 years.
And Marcus Morris is on the books for 3 more years, getting north of 15 mil. And I'm going to open this to both of you because I feel that the Clippers deprived themselves of making any, I guess, futuristic moves with just throwing money pretty much at these players. Some of them overpaid, some of them you could argue maybe slightly underpaid if you want to go that far. But is it possible if the Clippers needed to really shake the team up, could they just throw out something to just say, hey, take this, give us A, B, and C? I don't know. What team in the NBA is going to take this money from these players that they have to pay them? I don't know. Like, is there enough leverage if they really have to shake the team up where they can do that? Or are they going to have to utilize just who's available that's going to get cut?
Man, I think first of all with the Clippers, I don't know if you guys notice, you were recapping that win. Little smirk went on my face. I have to open up the conversation and say that I'm a Kawhi Leonard fan. So Nick fan, but Kawhi Leonard appreciator, respecter. That was Kawhikel last night, as I like to call him. Kawhikel Jordan, as I lovingly call him, because
I don't want to hear that ever again.
That's who was on the court last night. Robots, you literally like you went 100 years into the future, and whatever AI they have, you say like, build me an NBA wing superstar. You'd get Kawhi Leonard. It's nuts that he's gotten the amount of disrespect he has. And I get it because of, load management and everything, playoff P. It's the Clippers. Like, they're going to come in every year. It's like, are the Clippers going to blow it? If you have Kawhi Leonard, you have Paul George, Rajon Rondo, Serge Ibaka, like these guys can play, man. Doc Rivers, it's an amazing quote. They ask him, how he thinks the Clippers will fare with Ty Lue. His response, Ty Lue is right next to me on the bench, man. It's going to be the same thing. And what are we seeing? they got Rondo and they got Ibaka. Ibaka lets them shoot more threes. Batum lets them shoot more threes. So they've been one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the league. That was great management. Kennard deal, Morris deal, questionable. They're on the team. They contribute. They have guys. Regardless of how they got there, you can't look at money. They have guys. They have a lot of guys. It's like this Atlanta Hawks team that the Knicks are up against, but on steroids. Because to have a lead guy who can play on both ends of the court, and then to have a second guy who can play on both ends of the court, this is a whole different beast of playoff team. They're in the Western Conference. They're going to be up against LeBron every year. I think you have to look into making a shakeup. I also think you have to look into making it work with Kawhi and PG. I know Kawhi, there were rumblings that there were certain other stars he tried to get. The name that made it out was Jimmy Butler. He tried to get Jimmy before he tried to get George. The name that I heard that hasn't made it out was James Harden. He went for Harden before either Butler or George. Houston laughed him off the phone. So they went to Butler. Miami laughed him off the phone. Option 3, playoff P. Finally, they got a deal going. This team wasn't put together how people thought it was. People thought this was this Steve Ballmer showing up with his money and just buying a contender. This team was strategically built regardless. It's a playoff team, and I think they have a chance against Dallas in this series. I think if they make it past Dallas, I think they have a chance to go as deep as the Western Conference Finals or the Finals. If you told me right now that the NBA Finals was Milwaukee, Los Angeles Clippers, I'd be surprised. I'd be like, you're sure it wasn't the other Los Angeles team? But I'd buy it. Like when you have Kawhi, the reason I went into that whole Kawhi thing is because when you have that guy on your team, you have to go all in. Look at the Warriors. Look at the Warriors right now. It's a disservice what they're doing to the prime of Wardell, Stephen Curry. Can't do the same. You go all in every year. You have a guy of that caliber, especially if you have a second guy like Paul George. Got to stay all in.
Chris, I'm not sure if I'm going to call it a disservice. I feel that's Jack. I think you would agree. That's a little harsh considering.
I totally agree. It's not
drafting James Wiseman number 2 was a disservice. Signing really. Kelly Oubre was a disservice.
No, okay, okay. I'll give you the Oubre one.
Wiseman was 14 on my big board. All they had to do was give me one call. They had to give me one call, Aiello. I would have said, you take LaMelo Ball and you don't. He was, man.
That's a disservice. I think you saying that is a disservice.
To James Wiseman?
Yes, and the Warriors.
I had Desmond Bane ahead of James Wiseman on my big
Jack,
board.
I want to hear what you have to say because you and I are just kind of infuriated.
I'm a little confused, man.
I need to hear what you have to say. Please go. Just go,
because if you're drafting for talent and you think LaMelo is the guy, we saw what happened when Curry played alongside D'Angelo Russell. I understand they're two different players, but
very different players.
But it's two ball dominant guards. I don't think that's what the Warriors need. They needed a big man, and they got the best big man.
Right, but look at how Lonzo plays off the ball. Why can't LaMelo do the same off the greatest shooter of all time? All I'm gonna say is that if you were gonna pick Wiseman because what he could become and everything, and you didn't pick LaMelo because Curry's more like Tibbs than people think. Triangle guy, big on defense. He'll give the veteran the playing time if they can bring the defensive effort, and if it's a real hole in the team. You see guys like Juan Toscano Anderson. That's a Tibbs guy in blood, making it in Curry's rotation. The reason they didn't draft LaMelo is because he's this superstar, little rock star of a 19-year-old coming in who can't play defense very well. That's not going to be optimal for contending. So they went with the guy they could plug in at center. And my thing the whole time was you can't plug this guy in at center. They thought they could. That's why they made the pick. It made sense if they thought that. But I didn't think that. So that's why I had him so low on my big board. That's why I think it was the wrong pick. If he was going to come in and be what we saw in those 3 games against future accountants and lawyers, then maybe, yeah. But hard to get 30 points out of a game out of a rookie center who can't move sideways.
About a guy named Klay Thompson, okay? He didn't play all year.
And I
Klay Thompson's gravity is not going to teach James Wiseman how to use a basketball.
It's safe to say, because when they did select Wiseman, he was picked before Klay just ripped his knee again. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, okay? But the Wiseman pick, I don't see a problem with it. I feel if Bob Myers called you right now, Chris, and he heard all this, I think he would follow you to your house and just yell at you for hours on end, because that was just.
And you know what? It's because he would be angry that he screwed up the pick, and he'd be projecting his fault onto me. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say.
I don't know. Chris Persianen's out here rolling the hot takes, but Luka Doncic has been rolling out just flaming hot L's to the Clippers defense, because I mean, anyone can answer, like producer Alex, even if you want to just give me like a hand motion. Is there a solution to stopping Luka? I don't have the answer. Let me look. Is it in my notes? Oh, there's nothing. There's no solution. He is really coming for a. I'll say it real easily. Like, that kid is really, really coming for a top 10 player ever. Top 10 player ever. He's a top 5 player right now.
I'm talking
age 23.
I'm talking being 25 and already being up with the likes of Duncan, Kobe, Bird, Magic. That's a lot. It's a lot to say. And yet, does anyone doubt that he can get there?
No.
I don't.
But he hasn't done anything yet.
A little bit.
I'm in on him. He
hasn't done anything.
He has
won. What does he want?
I mean, we can get started on his supporting cast if you guys want to talk about his supporting cast, but I'm of the opinion that
what has he done?
This guy's team actively downgraded last offseason after paying $158 million out to a 7'3" bench shooting guard.
Let me respond.
I think he's doing great. I think Luka's doing great.
I agree. He's doing great because he's a great player. And your question is, how do you stop Luka Doncic? And the Clippers won. And what did he put up? He put up 44 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists. He's going to get that. The solution to the Clippers is they've got to have Kawhi and Paul George combining for close to 60 points every night. Yeah. You're not going to be able to slow him down every single game. So you've got to give it right back. And that's why they won the game last night.
I think the other thing that we're overlooking with this Dallas team is last night they shot 51% from 3. In the first 2 games, they shot over 66% from 3. And Luka Doncic down the stretch, 7 for 13 from the free throw line. He missed 3 or 4 key free throws in that fourth quarter. They had the number 6 guy whose name will not be said by me.
I was going to say, you want to get crazy? Talk about the guy whose weakness is free throws right now. I don't think that's an indictment on Luka, because LeBron James can't hit a free throw to save his life.
Number 6 had to shoot a free throw, and he made it. So, I mean, that doesn't do much when he only ends up with 9 points. But him being the Robin to Luka's Batman, scoring 9 points, he's grabbing 3 rebounds. He's literally taller than everyone on the floor, because the Clippers, if you guys noticed, ran small the last 7 or so minutes of the game. And
Paul George said on the post-game Zoom last night, very nonchalantly, that the reason that the offense looks how it has is because the Mavericks do not have a rim protector. He said they do not have a rim protector on the roster. There's a 7'3" man sitting in that paint.
Is he a boy? What is he? We don't know.
And they don't have a rim protector. So,
look, with number 6, he's not what we all thought he was going to be. He struggled versus Jack's magical Celtics back in the day when he was on.
Marcus Smart was clamping that guy up in the post.
Yeah, come on, man. You should be put your big behind on the block, get the ball.
Well, KP post-ups is what he keeps demanding more of, and Carlisle keeps giving them to him, and Luka wants to get traded.
Don't even take a fade. Pull a Shaq and just throw it down on someone's face. And
if he had the muscle, I'm sure he'd try.
To 1,000 little pieces. He's not doing that. He won't do that. I don't know why he's not going to do it. Now,
With that frame, come on.
but
Obi
he's so-
Toppin's
he's
Obi
tall.
Toppin's
Okay,
got a
come
better
on. He's
shot of
taller
putting
than
someone
literally
on the post.
everyone on the floor.
Obi Toppin's got a better shot of putting someone on a post.
you think
Okay.
he's
All right.
healthy?
Jack Roach, can you jump in here, please?
Well, my question to you guys is, do you think he's healthy?
No.
Porzingis?
He's also not healthy. He's never healthy.
That's the thing. Is that
He's also
yeah?
never
I think
healthy.
he's
That's
he's
part of the
fine right
problem.
now. I think he's rarely available. Rarely as available as he should be.
Mm-hmm.
For that paycheck, which is the bet that Dallas took. It's the bet they took. They had a number one for sure. They drafted a Batman. They said we need a Robin, and instead of waiting and going out and getting a Robin, they got a steal on a potential Batman in some people's eyes as a Robin, who is now
become the
struggling
Penguin.
to be Alfred. So it's like, you know, Dallas has got to call up Washington. Dallas has got to start asking about people that are available, because those two aren't going to get it done themselves.
Okay. Look, I don't know. If we're going to call Washington to trade number 6 because they just gave him a ton of money, it's kind of like the Westbrook deal to me in a way, where you're just kind of like, here to have this problem. Can you give us something we can use?
Find a way to turn Porzingis into McCollum or Beal if you can add a bunch of assets, and you might have something.
I don't know if he can do that. Now, Jack
I
Roach,
don't know if he could turn into McCollum.
I'm going to throw this to you. And I know it's kind of Doncic Island at the moment in Dallas, but he gets some stable production from Hardaway Jr. and Jalen Brunson. They can pour in 16 points if they need. How far away could this Mavericks team be? Let's just be hypothetical. Say they beat the Clippers in 5 or 6 games. How far away do you think that'll put them? Do you think that alters their rebuild? Does it speed it up even more, or are they going to just stand pat?
I think they're going to stand pat. I think that it really all hinges on Kristaps' health, because if he ever could stay healthy, and I know we've said that forever, but if he could, Kristaps and Luka, I mean, it's hard to find a duo more talented than that, really. And we can talk about Kristaps' physicality and
I'll stay quiet.
But no, I really stand by that. And if they could add a really solid point guard, if they could add a guy like Kyle Lowry on top of that, and I don't know how they make that happen, but if they add a good facilitator who can chip in when needed, I think that they're close to being where they want to be.
And look, there's a model that I'm going to bring up that they used way back in the early 2000s. They're a Michael Finley away from really challenging for that West crown. They're a Michael Finley away, but we've got to talk about someone who's probably a ring away from challenging Michael Jordan, and that's the Los Angeles Lakers with LeBron James. Last game they played the Phoenix Suns. They beat them up physically in that game. They won 109-95. LeBron had kind of a passive-ish game, only 21 points, but Anthony Davis, following the game 1 blunder in the desert, the sun is starting to set, and the Suns will be at Mohegan Sun instead of the second round of the playoffs pretty soon, I believe. Davis has dropped 34-10 in game 2, 34-11 in game 3. Jack Roach, I'm going to let you go first this time. Is this going to be another cakewalk to the finals for the Lakers? And I mean, if Anthony Davis is going to be playing this good, who's going to stop the man?
I'm not going to say a cakewalk.
Okay.
But we definitely have not seen the best of LeBron James in this playoffs. And when we do, that's going to be really scary.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like to use the word cakewalk, but man, they are firing on all cylinders right now. When you get LeBron at maybe he's still banged up a bit, but you get him 90% of what he is when he's in the playoffs. And man, I don't know who's going to stop them.
I couldn't agree more. Now, DeAndre Ayton,
I was going to say, want to talk about nicknames. I'm a dominating guy.
Dominating. He ain't dominating the paint. I'll tell you that, Chris. 22 and 12. Okay, sure.
Hey, he was shooting 32 for 39 coming into game 3, I think.
But he
Or
ain't
after
dominating
game
on
3.
defense. I'll tell you that. It's been horrendous on that end for the Suns. Now, physically, I think we can all agree they're very much overmatched in that department. The Lakers are just too big. They're too strong. I'm not going to say they're too fast because the Suns can definitely keep up with them in the foot race, but the physical attribute in today's NBA and how the Lakers abuse it, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. I don't know how teams can compete with that because you have a bruising front court of Davis, Drummond, and LeBron when he wants to be, and then the backcourt is 6'5" KCP and little tiny Dennis Schroeder. I mean, that's not
Dennis Schroeder, listen.
Yeah.
Only because I know you respect Tom Thibodeau, I'll say that you've got to respect Dennis Schroeder because even though he's going to end up being heavily overpaid after this season,
guts, man.
That kid can drive and defend. And that is all Tom Thibodeau asks of his point guards. So if Tom Thibodeau were still the president of a team, I know who would be giving Dennis Schroeder over $20 million a year next season. Thankfully, Thibodeau doesn't run the Knicks. I'm just saying Schroeder might be buying a lot of blue and orange merchandise if he did, because that's a Tips player.
I 100%.
I'm in on LeBron. I'm in on the Lakers. I think if the Mavericks do squeeze out of this round, they can get to the conference finals, meet Los Angeles, purple and gold squad, not the current one there. And if I'm being honest, it's not even about LeBron versus Luka. Like, that's going to be prime time, but the game will be won on the other side, and that's going to be AD versus KP. That's not a debate. So that's going to be, talk about it. Like, if the Mavericks don't roster a rim protector, how are you going to stop the guy who just won a ring being the best play finisher in the league, who's receiving plays from one of the best playmakers of all time? It's just good luck. You know, if you don't have a rim protector, could have used Nerlens Noel or anybody.
Willie Cauley-Stein. That's who it is. It's Willie
Oh,
Cauley-Stein.
brother. He's getting fried out there. So it's tough with Dallas. Dallas is going to be fine in the future because they have a guy. You have a dude. If you have a dude, you can get places. You can get yourself into conversations, into playoff conversations. You want to be successful, though, you have to start building like a playoff team. They thought about it. They brought in, James Johnson, an enforcer, veteran, tough, bully presence. They need to upgrade their number 2 option. It's really simple. Like, the New York Knicks right now need to upgrade a lot. The thing is, they don't need to. They're just going to, and it's going to help. Dallas, if they don't want to lose Luka Doncic, needs to start getting real serious, because if you have a guy like Luka, you have Seth Curry spacing the floor for him, and you trade him for Josh Richardson. Like, all these moves, man, they're not encouraging. They can't be encouraging to the guy who is watching, and this is not by orange and blue tinted glasses this time. The guy who came into the NBA saying publicly he wants one day to be the king of New York, watching the New York Knicks doing what they're doing, and being teammates with the guy who couldn't do what he wants to go do there. I'd be tempted if I were him, man. I'd be scared if I'm Dallas, and I think Dallas could definitely keep him around. This is not me saying Luka to the Knicks. I'm saying you want Luka to not even have it on his mind that every other team in the league wants him. Got to get serious if you're Dallas.
Why don't you do this? Why don't you buy Luka a dinner? You take him to a pit master and you have a cookout, and then you say, "Please, Luka, please stay with my team. I go on the Shark Tank. If I'm Mark Cuban, I go on the Shark Tank. I'm really famous. I'll give you all the money you want. Please stay, even if we don't get you help." He's going to have to beg for him to stay. I mean, now granted, Rick Carlisle being the coach has something to do with that, because he's a phenomenal coach. And Jack, as a Celtics observer, as close as you watch them, you know all about having an excellent X's and O's guy and maximizing talent. Even if it's underwhelming talent, they just know how to use it. And I think that's what the case may be with Luka and the Mavericks. That's probably the case with Frank Vogel and the Lakers because outside of LeBron and Davis, their roster's just it's not that good. I'm not so high on Wesley Matthews. Somehow they downgrade from Rondo and Dwight from last year because they have to play Alex Caruso, who, aside from all the memes, I don't actually think is good at basketball. And they signed Marc Gasol, who just took the leap of faith off of the cliff, and he's just terrible now. He can't seem to keep up in an NBA game. If the Mavs and Lakers meet in the conference finals, Jack, I don't know. Do the Mavericks shoot their way out of that one? Do they?
Lakers in 5.
Yeah, that's fair.
The Mavericks will shoot their way into a victory, a single victory.
Oh my God.
1.
I still stand by.
Wow.
I still think the Clippers are going to beat the Mavericks.
You think so?
Oh yeah. I mean, I said I think that they would still win the series if they went down 3-0.
I think they could.
I don't think you sell your Clippers stock just yet.
I can't.
Speaking of potentially selling stock, though, before we wrap up this segment, I have to take us to Milwaukee. Dante DiVincenzo out with an injury. I was in on Milwaukee's ECF chances, not just to make it. I'm talking to win the Eastern Conference. I was very in on Milwaukee. I remain in on Milwaukee. This can't help.
No.
To what extent do you guys think this affects Milwaukee's championship chances?
It's pretty bad. I'm not going to say they can't not overcome it because in a perfect world they can, but
they can survive losing redheaded Austin Rivers. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, oh, that's a good comparison. I'll give you that.
Austin Rivers just balled out and won the Denver Nuggets a game against the Utah Jazz. That was not supposed to be an insult.
But DiVincenzo is so integral to the Milwaukee Bucks because he just does everything that they ask of him that other players won't do. And then, I'll just shoot threes now for fun after just diving for 50-50 balls and defense and things like that. I don't know how they're going to find a way to recreate it. I mean, they probably can do it. Now, how they do it, I don't know. But there's a way you can do it. But this is a huge loss because he's going to be out for the rest of the playoffs no matter how far they go. And
Jack? Oh, sorry.
Not good.
Personally, not super concerned. It's obviously a big loss for them. Guy that, was a great addition, took a little bit of a step this season forward, but I think he combined for 8 points in games 1 and 2, and it hurts. But you're going to see other teams starting to lose guys like that. Some of these guys going down, just the wear and tear of the playoffs. And, if he's the first person to go, it hurts if you're in Milwaukee. But, I'd rather see him go down than Drew Holiday or Giannis, So
it's unfortunate, but you're right. They can survive it. I think that's fair to say. After this upcoming break, we'll be back, Jack Roche and I, to talk Mets, to talk Yankees, MLB, locally, some local baseball talk. We'll have Ron Blomberg on after that. First, MLB DH will come on, give us a little interview. So excited to get the chance to speak to him. Jack Roche and I will be back for WFUV Sports after this break.
To support the WFUV Sports Department, visit support.wfuv.org to become a member or make a one-time donation. WFUV Sports, home to New York's longest-running sports call-in show and the flagship station of Fordham Athletics.
Welcome back to One on One with WFUV Sports. I'm Chris Persian and here with Jack Roche. Just finished up a nice, lengthy conversation that involved Anthony Donahue, that involved Thomas Aiello, on the National Basketball Association, the happenings around it, local team, New York Knicks, making some noise in the playoffs. It's time now, though, to get into the MLB. We have two local teams, Mets, Yankees, both with some little news nuggets of news to talk about, and just I've got thoughts to give on these two teams as well. I'm sure you do too, Jack. Let's get started over in Queens, Citi Field, New York Mets. Pete Alonso potentially coming back a little sooner than expected. Noah Syndergaard, unfortunately, looking like he may have reached that point of his career. And I stay vague for protecting my emotions reasons. That's about it. How are you feeling about the guys in City right now with all these injuries? It's got to be tough on them mentally. I mean, it's tough on me mentally as a Mets fan. So,
well, let me tell you, because last night I was making a graphic to show some of the injuries that the Mets are dealing with right now. And I didn't even know where to begin. I mean, there's not enough pixels on the screen to show them all. And, hopefully you've got Pete Alonso coming back within the next week or so. Kevin Pillar, he'll come back when he's ready. But
you could say he faced a bit of danger there.
Jesus. Yeah, well, that was horrifying. That was a scary situation, and it's happy to hear that he's gonna come back soon.
Of course.
But you haven't even seen Carlos Carrasco or Noah Syndergaard. And you've got setbacks with Syndergaard. You've still got Jeff McNeil out. And it's shocking that we're here, that the Mets are 24-20.
The Mets, crazy
in the NL East. And to me, I don't know if that says more about the resilience of this team and their ability to fight, or just the NL East. I mean, I thought
Jack, I have a take. I have an answer.
Let's hear it.
And it's going to be the answer you expect to hear from me. But I've got to say it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to paint a little picture here for you. I love school analogies when it comes to sports because we've all been to school. Everyone gets them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You're in history, groups of 6 for a big final project. You've got a couple best friends in there. You've got a nice little camaraderie, but it's your group is people you don't know, pretty much. You work your butt off, you prepare, show up presentation day ready to perform and to earn your final grade, and your best friend is a no-show. you are to perform this presentation, this final presentation with kids that you do not know, that you were not friends with, and you've got to wing it and kill it. It's not going to happen. When you've got the camaraderie in the clubhouse like the Mets do, though, if you were in a group with 5 of your best friends and one missed the presentation, you think you guys would miss a beat? It'd be rough, and it'd probably be very funny to someone like me in the back of the classroom to watch. But you'd get through it and you'd make it happen. The New York Mets right now are giving a presentation on a book they've never read before because this team just got put together and is now already in injury shambles. But they're doing it with their friends and they're on the fly, making it work every time. Is it luck? I think it is what Tom Thibodeau likes to say when people call the Knicks lucky, which is that it's when preparation meets opportunity that you get luck. The Mets finding themselves with a bunch of strange opportunities in the situations they have regarding their injuries, the people having to step up. They're prepared, they're ready, and they're making the most of these opportunities, despite the fact that this team is probably beaten up mentally from how many times they've gotten beaten up physically around the clubhouse. I'm confident that this team puts it together still. I mean, you have a superstar shortstop who has yet to put things together, and you're first in your division. You can't feel like you're in a terrible spot, but you can feel like you really need to put things together, which is where the Mets are.
Yeah, and you mentioned the shortstop, Francisco Lindor, Mr. $341 million man. There is no better time than now for him to win over this fan base, to justify that contract extension. And he struggles. He's batting $185. That's just not acceptable. That's coming from a guy that's not big on the batting average statistic, but man, that's just not acceptable. Going into this season, I confidently said that he's the best two-way shortstop in the game. And right now, when you're undermanned, you're struggling, you're staying afloat, you're still in first place, but you desperately need that spark. Right now, the Mets are scoring the second fewest runs per game. This is the time for Francisco Lindor to prove himself and to really re-solidify his position, his standing as an elite shortstop in the MLB.
Absolutely. And with the New York fans having the expectations that they do for their players in the first place, forget the paycheck. I want to visit 2 other names, Julius Randle, Edwin Diaz. It's real easy for guys to come in and just get crapped on if they don't perform. So New York City, there's a reason that it is very hard to succeed here. It is genuinely impacted by the market, like your chances of succeeding. You have to be able to take the heat. Julius Randle, just because I'm familiar with the Knicks happenings, was hiding last year in his house. Like, he would not leave on purpose. He would not go shopping. He would send his wife shopping. He was literally in hiding because he didn't want Knicks fans to see him in public because he knew he wasn't playing well. To just have gotten paid $341 million, have that kind of pressure, be getting booed when you don't hit. It's not just turning it around that Francisco Lindor has. That guy has soul searching to do right now because he has to find a way to not just connect the bat to the ball, but to really connect with his team and become not just a part of the clubhouse, but a part of the real winning effort. Yes, he's contributing by being out there and being part of what we do. He can do a lot more, and we know it, and it's not crazy to expect it of him. It has to happen at some point.
That's the thing. It's not crazy to expect it. He should be the best shortstop in the league. He's got the glove, he's like a generational talent, and I remember all the talk to the GM of the Indians and how there was so much buzz around him getting that $300 million contract. And he goes, the day that we give someone a $300 million contract is the day that another guy gets $1 billion contract or $100 million contract.
Right.
And there was so much outrage around that or to that comment because Francisco Lindor was worth that money. Like that was a fair. It's crazy to call a almost $350 million contract fair, but it really was because of his pedigree. He's a great player.
It was a valuation of services. That's what they were worth.
He can do it. He's capable of being that rock, that guy that provides the offense that they need right now.
It's tough. You thought Lindor would come in and be a floor raiser. He seems to somehow be a ceiling limiter as of right now. Got to step it up. There's no other way to put it. Just got to start playing ball. Me too, man. The problem is that if it doesn't happen as soon as they would like down in Queens, it's going to start getting harder for him to make that turnaround because he's going to start getting booed harder. He's going to start it's very sensitive.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I agree with you. But, he's in a new situation, a lot of, big expectations. He's in a tough city to play in. And I really am confident that he is going to turn things around. So, yeah, I'm still on the Lindor train. I'm still buying stock.
Me too. I want to get now to the team playing where you are, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Fordham's hometown Yanks. I mean, home borough Yanks. I'm gonna come out with a heavy hitter because this is where we're gonna go with this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Their offense right now is like almost a little depressing, because it has these different gears, these giant gears that can get this machine moving. And yet it's like someone pulling the chain on the lawnmower, like just trying to start this thing. Can they keep winning if the offense remains this sapped? If it seems to have life sapped out of it, can they keep winning? Do you think that's a trait of this team? Do you think what's up with that? And can the winning continue?
Listen, I am not concerned about the offense. Teams go through these stretches, and to be quite honest, over their past 10 games, they're 7-3, 2.5 back from first place. The AL East has been, more so a dogfight than we thought it was. We've got 3 legitimate teams that are going to contend for that first spot. I'm more concerned, and obviously it's great that, Britton's going to be back, but
right.
Man, we see that game last night, 10th inning. You don't want to bring out Chapman for a second inning, even after 14 pitches. Fine. You don't want to throw Loaisiga, that's fine. But they bring in Wilson in this situation, who gives up the walk-off home run. And man, it's just some of these little decisions that Boone makes, especially with the bullpen, that makes me a lot more concerned than the lineup.
It's the fact that they kind of, as the last guy, I know that the offense, if it ends up being fine, this isn't a concern. But if you are going to be winning off great pitching and questionable offenses, the last, as of recent, you can't have a manager blowing decisions. You just.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work. It doesn't fit in the equation. It doesn't fit in the formula to winning. It's just you can't have both. And I don't think either are a thing that the Yankees want to have. But it's just those two negatives really, really lift each other up, or rather push each other down to weigh you down seriously as a team. You mentioned Britton. you know, with Kluber as well, immediate replacements for Kluber in the rotation, tough to think about. You know, what the decision is there. I don't know. You know, and I can't even think to speculate because it's Boone, and I don't know where this is going to go, and I do know that I think I'm okay with it. Like, as a, you know, faux Yankee fan here for a second, put on my navy blue cap. I think I'm confident in the talent. I think I'm confident in the talent.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm totally confident about the talent. And that's what's so frustrating, because we see this team, you know, have, I mean, really the potential is incredible. But they just haven't been able to put it all together. And I feel like if we get to the end of the season, you know, we go to the playoffs and they're not playing in the World Series, there has to be some sort of change. And I'm not even necessarily talking about, you know, the actual roster of the team, because we just said it. They've got the talent. But you got to start looking at Aaron Boone. Is that spot guaranteed? Is that spot, you know, is that what the Yankees are comfortable and confident in? And I really think they need to shake things up.
Man, I'm with you, because when you have that talent, you keep hitting a wall. Again, like I was saying with the Mets, you know, those injuries are going to pile up. They're going to mean something mentally to a team struggling physically. The Yankees, despite the talent, keep hitting that wall, keep not being able to play to the level they want. It's going to get harder for them to do it. You know, let's jump sports again. A team like the Clippers continually not meeting expectations. It kind of gets tougher for them to go ahead and get over that hump, because it's up another year of playoff P inbound. And what do we get? You know, it's like, once that wall really, really, you know, you hit it enough times, I don't know what happens. Maybe, you know, magic sports wall that gets bigger every time it takes an impact, but that wall can really build up, and it's dangerous. That mental wall that contenders face. So,
hey Chris, you know what the Clippers got? They got a new coach. You know,
man, they got a new coach who was the same coach, and it proved that maybe getting an actual new coach would have been the way to go about it. Might be the way for the Yankees to go about it. Looking into a new manager, to be monitored, of course, here on WFUV. This break coming up will take us into our interview with Ron Blomberg, who we're excited to get to sit down and talk to here in a couple minutes. Going to ask him some questions about being the first DH in the MLB and doing it as a player for the New York Yankees, you know, here in the Bronx. Very excited. See you guys after this break here on WFUV Sports' One-on-One.
Be sure to follow WFUV Sports on all of our social media platforms. At WFUV Sports on Twitter, at WFUV_sports on Instagram, and WFUV Sports on Facebook and YouTube. WFUV Sports, home to New York's longest-running sports call-in show and the flagship station of Fordham Athletics.
Rod, we're here on One-on-One, longest-running call-in show in New York sports, and we're honored today to have Ron Blomberg on the show. I want to let you introduce yourself, because I want to know what it is that you specifically love being remembered for in the baseball community.
Well, in 1973, I was Well, no. Let's go back. I was the number one draft pick in the country.
67.
67. I was number one draft pick in 67 by the Yankees. And I had an opportunity to go any other place in basketball or football and go to any college that I wanted to go to. But the only way that I would sign to play baseball would be the Yankees. And fortunately, the Yankees did not have some good seasons. They're owned by CBS. And I got drafted number one by the Yankees in 67. And that was a no-brainer for me. I signed right off the bat. The reason why, to be honest with you, to play up in New York, I'm a Jewish Southerner, and to come up to play with all my family up in New York City where all the Jews were. And I wanted to go to every delicatessen that I can go to. And you know,
I love it.
And during my seasons playing up in New York, I think I made every delicatessen up around this area, and I found some great ones. And I found the pastrami's and the corned beefs and the half sours and the mustard and the ketchup and the Dr. Brown's and the cheesecakes. We don't have that down south now. You know, if I want to get a pastrami, I would have to go to Hebrew National, get some pastrami and to some corned beef. But I didn't have it carved like I did up in New York. That was the best of the best.
This is the type of history we're here for, Ron. It's great to hear.
What's the best New York City deli then?
You know what? I lived up in Riverdale, and that's like 98% Jews up there. And I used to go to a deli down there called Liebman's. And when I was living there, I used to go there every single day before the game. And I used to get my pastrami. I never got a sandwich. I always used to get a platter. I eat pastrami, corned beef, and brisket, and had my potato salad. But the best, I'm just telling you, and people going to disagree with me, but my closest friends, who I became the best of friends with, who Thurman and I we did almost every night after a game. We went down there to eat. The greatest matzo ball soup in the world, the greatest, was the Stage Deli on 7th Avenue, right across the street from the Sheraton. And unfortunately, they closed up. A few doors up above was the Carnegie. And I never went to the Carnegie much, but the Stage Deli, they're the best of best. They're my dearest friends, and I miss them so much now. And the only place that I actually, when I go back to Old Timers Day, it's really hard to find a deli. I've been to Katz's a few times, but it's too big for me. And I don't like to wait in line. I like to just sit down and had all the food, be brought to me. But then I have to go all the way downtown, or I go down to the 2nd Avenue Deli, or I used to, I don't even know if it's open on Columbus Square. They used to have a place called Artie's. And, but nowadays, they don't have that. They have the little sandwich places where you go into and, they got their little restaurants, and they got their, it's like you wait in line, you tell them you want this and this and this, but it's not like the delis. It's not like the delis. But New York delis are the best, but all the restaurants in New York were the best. And, Art Shamsky is probably one of my closest friends. And, I don't know if you know Art, he was 1969 Mets. And of course, he was with the Mets for many, many years. And he's probably one of my best friends. And we talk almost every other day. And he lives up in New York. He's down in Florida now, but he's coming back to New York because he said, I got to eat this food up in New York. I said, are you going to be able to eat all your food in New York and eat outside? He said, well, it's just beginning to open up a little bit. I could go into restaurants now and eat. But living down south, we live in like a different world. We've been open almost about 75 to 80% for about over a year now. And it's a lot different where we are, but we don't have the restaurants like New York, of course. But unfortunately, fortunately, I hope to be coming up to New York and maybe to be at a baseball game. I do a lot of stuff with the Yankees. I do a lot of meet and greets up there. A guy named Andrew Levy is involved with all the suites up in New York with the Yankees, and he brings all the older ball players up there, like a David Cohn and Goose Gossage and Mickey Rivers and Roy White. And
History.
Sparky. Yeah, and it's wonderful. And usually we would have the Old Timers Day in July. Of course, we're not having that this year. We didn't even have it last year. But it's going to come back, and I'm looking forward to getting invited again. I've been there Old Timers Day for about 18 times, and it's the greatest of the greatest. And I know you're a Met fan, and I know I'm talking to a guy from Boston, and he's a Boston fan. But there's no other better team in the world than the New York Yankees, and the New York fans are the best of the best. And when you put that Yankee pinstripes on, and when you play in Yankee Stadium, when I did the real Yankee Stadium, not the new one where Jeter built. I was there when Lou Gehrig was there, and Babe Ruth was there, and Mickey Mantle was there, and I was there when the real Yankee Stadium was there on 161st and River Avenue. And you're going to school down in up in Fordham, you know where that is.
Yes, sir.
I'm at the best of the best up there. And, when we got to play and put that pinstripes on and got to put that Yankee uniform on and got to play in front of the greatest fans in the whole world. They're the best. They're the best of the best. And it's nothing like it. And they're my family. And the good part about it is really, I'm going to tell you that I did so much stuff up in New York, and being Jewish and being very, very much involved in Judaism. And I'm very, very a proud Jew. And I think I went to everybody's bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah and everybody's wedding. And I lit everybody's candles. And,
I love it.
From the Hasidics to the Orthodox to the Conservative to the Reform. I was related to everyone in New York City. And the good part about it was I was a role model for a lot of people. And that made me feel very, very good, because even to this day, now I'm 72 years old. I'm an old man now, but I could go back to New York and they all hug me. And, my grandfather said, "You're the best. You're the nicest guy. You're so proud to be Jewish." I am. I'm very, very proud. And I'm very, very proud to represent the city and to represent my faith. And being a Jew and living in New York City was the best of the best. And to put that Yankee pinstripes on.
Incredible. You spoke a lot about being a Yankee and being a Jewish Yankee, and how incredible and just authentic your experience was. Speaking of authentic, you are the designated hitter of MLB history. You are the first DH ever. And I simply wanted to ask you, are you happy that you broke the game of baseball?
I didn't just break it. I screwed up the game of baseball in '73. And that was the greatest thing in the world. And I tell myself now, I'm not the designated hitter. I'm the designated Hebrew. And that was my first book. And it was a very successful book. And, and all the Jews bought it, and it was great. And I gave all the proceeds back to charity and stuff. And I was very, very happy and proud to do that. But yes, to be honest with you, in '73, when I became the first DH, I had no idea it was going to affect baseball this much. I thought it was going to last a year at the most. I consider myself a designated pinch hitter. That's what I felt like. Had no idea that 48 years later, it still has not been universalized. The National League, your Mets never adopted yet, but they will next year. We got, David Ortiz going to wind up being, into the Hall of Fame. We got Edgar Martinez, who went into the Hall of Fame, what was it, 2 years ago, and he was the first. And it's 50% of people love it, 50% of the people like it. And that's why it's such a talking point. It's so great. The DH, this is the only rule in the game of baseball that I think has been adopted extremely well. Now you can't slide into second base. That's terrible. You can't slide in the home. Now, you got to run at second base on a extra inning game. You got the relief. There's so many changes in the game of baseball that I do not like. You got the shift. You got everybody playing as right field. I don't have any idea, why they don't bunt the ball to third base or, bunt the ball to first base.
So you're a purist, a baseball purist.
Not a purist, but wait a second. If I was a purist, I wouldn't like the DH, but I like something. I like something.
I see.
You got to look at basketball. All basketball has a 3-point shoot, a shot. Okay. Football has, if you go into a second overtime, I believe, you have to go for 2 points. That's good. I think that's excellent. Those are the small little points. But the DH, let's be honest, the hitters cannot hit. It's a wasted AB. These guys nowadays are being trained, being from Little League to high school to college to majority of the minor leagues. They don't hit. They have a DH. They don't even know how to pick up a bat. They don't even know what a bat is. If they do get up to bat, they don't bunt because they don't know how to bunt. So, and people say purists, the strategy is, they don't have the strategy. There's no strategy in, having a pitcher hit because they don't do anything. It's no bunting now. It's no delayed steals now. It's hardly any steals now. And, the game of baseball is a home run or strikeout. Let's be honest. And, every time I look at sports in the morning when I'm working out, riding my treadmill, they show just home runs after home runs after home runs. That's all they show. And you know what? That's how they make their money, on home runs. And they don't even look at strikeouts as being negative. Back when we played, if you strike out with the man on third base, they'll bring that up to you at negotiation time. Well, you left the man on third base and you struck out. You don't have a comeback. But nowadays, they don't even look at batting averages now. They just look at home runs. And the name of game of baseball and how I look at it is getting more runs than the other team. Now, if you have to steal, you have to have a delay steal, you have to bunt. Small ball. Billy Martin did it. Ralph Houck did it. Joe Madden for the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, he's where I forgot where he is. I think he's with the Angels, maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's, why do you think the Rays win? Why do you think they play real baseball? They first and third you. They don't wait, for the seventh inning. You're losing 4-1, and you got to get a 3-run home run to tie it, and you hope you get another home run in the last inning. But the game has totally changed. I hope it goes back. George Steinbrenner, if he was, he probably rolling over in his grave watching the game of baseball now. And Abner Doubleday's the same way, but it'll go back. I think the fans are getting tired of it just to see everybody's hitting home runs. You might as well just hit off the tee and you'll see how far you hit the ball, so people don't get injured. But hey, it is a game of baseball. I got to play it at the best time in the world. It was real baseball. And I go back to the stadium. I still think it's real baseball, but I know it's not. And I know it's a major change, but you still see the same fans and there are the same great people. And that's what makes baseball, or the fans.
Now, before you hop off, we just ask real quick about your book, The Captain and Me, On and Off the Field with Thurman Munson. Could you just tell us about your relationship with him and, what a great teammate he was for you and mentor for the game?
Well, I should talk about Carlton Fisk with you. I mean,
You didn't write a book about Carlton Fisk.
I know that. I don't want to write a book about Fisk, but let me tell you about Thurman. Thurman was my roommate for 5 years, and he was the best of the best. I signed in 67, number one draft pick in the country in 67. He was the number one draft pick in 68. He signed out of college. I signed out of high school. We met in 69 down in spring training, and we had three things in common. We loved to fish, we loved to play golf, and we loved to eat. So I told him right off the bat, I knew here's a guy, a blue collar guy from Canton, Ohio, had no idea what delicatessen food was. Having spring training in Fort Lauderdale, being able to go down to Miami, hey, you can't beat that. So you had all the delis down there. So I introduced them to matzo ball, pastrami, corned beef, half sours, and Dr. Brown's, and the good Jewish mustard, and the cheesecake. And so he loved all that stuff. I mean, he loved it. Whenever we went back into the city, we always had to eat at the Stage Deli. That was our place of the place. And he used to take me, and he said, I'm going to take you to the greatest hamburger place in the world. You know where it was? White Castle.
There's one right down the street.
I know that. I'm just telling you. There's a White Castle.
Come on. That's
Yeah,
like, I'm going to take you
was-
to get a New York City slice and you walk into a Sbarro's. Oh, man.
No. It was, hey, but back then it was a White Castle. That's the only thing we could afford, a nickel for a hamburger, but
That's a deal.
oh yeah. So we went in there and he introduced me to that, but we became the best. Let me tell you something. I'm trying to do everything I possibly can to get Thurman elected to the Hall of Fame. He's been,
Right.
Every single year they give him less votes because the writers did not like him. Let's just be honest. He was a dirty type of guy, not dirty player, but he never shaved. He, always went out on the field. He had ketchup and mustard on his uniform because he always wound up eating a hot dog. He was a rough type of guy. He never liked writers, and the writers didn't like him. They were afraid of him, so they never put him into the Hall of Fame. They never elected him. So because it's new now, he's going to have to go into the veteran committee now. There's a lot of new people, and what I'm trying to do is the captain in me has been number one. Okay, and for the last month. The book has come out a little bit over a month ago. It's been number one in Amazon twice. It's number 12 now, I think, number 12 today. And that's great. It's selling thousands and thousands of copies. And you know what? The book is not a baseball book. I don't know if people ever seen Bang the Drum Slowly. Bang the Drum Slowly was like a love story. And this is a story where your catcher had cancer, and you had a pitcher. There was a starting pitcher that took care of the catcher who had cancer. Myself, because I was injured quite a bit, Thurman took care of me. Wherever the ball players jumped on me a little bit and saw me in the training room, and they sort of stayed away from me. I was like, make sure they stay away from you. And Thurman really gave it to these guys. And these guys respect Thurman. Thurman was a team captain. Thurman was the best of the best. Thurman was a leader. He had the it factor. He needs to be in the Hall of Fame. He will be in the Hall of Fame. And I'm going to do everything I possibly can. And Diana wrote the foreword of my book, and she refused to write the foreword of any Thurman Munson's book except mine, because we're so close. And the book is doing unbelievable. People will love this book. And I had 500 books I purchased, and I'm down to like 10 books now. That's all. And I need more books. But, people love the book. And if you want to get the book, I'm going to tell you where to get. You could go to Amazon, number one. If you want my signature on the book, and that's what a lot of people are doing, you go to Ron Blomberg. Now, Bloomberg is 1 O. It's not like Mayor Bloomberg that has 2 O's. It's ronbloombergyankees.com. And it's a great book. I'll sign it for you. Put whatever you want in the book. It's great. And, I'm very, very proud of it. And y'all, I don't know if y'all read the book, but you're going to have to get the book because you'll love it, guys. And, even though being a Met fan and a Red Sox fan, you're going to want to put Thurman into the Hall of Fame. Believe me, just like all the Yankee fans, they're going to put him into the Hall of Fame.
Love it. Ron, it was such an honor to hear from you today about yourself, your career, about Thurman. Just great perspective and incredible to hear from you. We thank you so much for joining us on One. For Chris Persianen and for Jack Roche, we thank you again very much, and stay tuned as we'll be back after this break.
One has a brand new YouTube channel. Subscribe to WFUV Sports to catch our simulcast Saturday nights and get notifications so you never miss another show. Miss the show? You can find on-demand segments, interviews, and highlights every week. WFUV Sports, home to New York's longest-running sports call-in show and the flagship station of Fordham Athletics. It's WFUV and WFUV HD, New York. Listener-supported public media from Fordham, the Jesuit University of New York. Right here on 90.7 FM, WFUV.org, and WFUVSports.org. This is One, New York's longest-running sports call-in show on 90.7 FM, WFUV.org, and WFUVSports.org.
Welcome back to WFUV's One, New York's longest sports call-in show. Thomas Aiello back here with headlines alongside Chris Persianen and Jack Roche. And gentlemen, we have a bit of substance to talk about retaining to NBA fans and how they've been behaving recently. Now, to use this phrase and this word is a little disheartening coming from a league that has worked so hard to build the fan viewing experience to something that you probably don't get anywhere else in the NBA. NBA fans have been acting like children, just misbehaved, immature, crazy children that, kick and scream when they don't get anything they want. And we're going to start with Boston because there's a little substance to this Nets series with Kyrie Irving. He put out a quote before heading back to Beantown, and he brought up, some issues that we've been dealing with as a country in the past year or so about, systematic racism, and he wanted to keep it strictly about basketball. Now, Jack Roche is a Massachusetts faithful, and he is someone who here at WFUV we all cherish, as well as our other Massachusetts faithful. And Jack's a good person, so I want to put that out there. But there's just, I'm sure you have seen at Celtics games, there's just a couple bad apples that go out there and they just ruin it for everybody. And Jack, I'm gonna let you go first. How do you, what is this like? I'm from New York, so I don't really come into contact with any of this, but what's it like?
Yeah, well, I was born and raised in Boston. It's a place that I cherish. It's a place that I love. And it's a place I feel comfortable in. Part of that because I was, a white guy from a predominantly Irish town. But as a sports fan, there definitely have been, instances that make you raise your brow. For me, that first came at Fenway Park, where fans were using, racial slurs at the Orioles' Adam Jones. I know a couple of years ago, a Celtics fan was, got a 2-year ban for using racial slurs against DeMarcus Cousins. And now we're hearing Kyrie kind of express his feelings around, those comments in Boston's history of it. And you look at a guy like Jaylen Brown, who is a real leader, not only in the Celtics, locker room, that clubhouse, but for the city of Boston. And he had a quote essentially saying that he acknowledged what Kyrie's saying, but didn't love the manner it was brought up, kind of centering around a playoff game. Because unfortunately, this issue in the city of Boston, in the United States of America, goes so much deeper than sports. For me, I saw it in public schooling. I grew up in a town with great public schools, and I lived 2 miles away from Fenway Park. But if I lived 1 mile away, I wouldn't have gone to a so great public school. And that unfortunately affects minority communities more than white people. And it's sad. And I understand that Kyrie brought it up in the sense that there are more fans coming back to TD Garden, but it's really an issue that's so much bigger than Game 3. It's so much bigger than sports.
And Jack, I think you said it very well, that Boston, and we love you here, and you and I obviously have known each other a little longer than I've known Chris, but we're friends, and that doesn't take anything away that I would think of you or anyone from Massachusetts that I know as a you guys are all good people, but it's just the, I guess, discrepancy that we as a society have to live with. And I don't blame Jaylen Brown for saying it's the wrong place to bring it up. I felt that was an appropriate response coming from him, because he always says the right things. He tries to do the right thing. He's not a bad guy. He's a really good person. And I watched his GQ interview when they were just like, what do you do for a side hobby? He's just like, oh, I listen to music, I collect records, and he's a good guy. But Danny Ainge, the Celtics GM, basically turned a blind eye, saying, when he had Kyrie on the Celtics, he never really talked to him about this kind of stuff and never heard that from him. And he just said, we want to play basketball. Now, in hindsight, I guess, looking back on how he approached it in the heat of the moment, I guess you want to stick it to just, we're here for playoffs and the fans are just coming back. But it's a little disheartening when he kind of won't say, hey, cut it out. We don't need this. And unfortunately, Boston has this reputation of being a racist place, to put it bluntly. That famous picture with Ted Landsmark from the 80s when he almost got stabbed with the American flag, and you guys can go Google that. And then Utah, I guess, kind of has that reputation as well, as a parallel, I guess, out west, because fans there were taunting Ja Morant's family and him. And I'm not even going to repeat what was said by one fan. It was just so disgusting and horrible, and every negative adjective in the book. I felt like they should be put in jail for that. And he called one of the other fans called his mom a B word. I'm not going to say it. Do you guys think, Chris, you can hop in as well, is there a problem? I don't want to say there's a full on, we need to close the league again and ban fans, but is there a problem, I guess, with how fans behave now? Because usually NBA fans are civil and players will speak out to say, hey, quit it. Like, that doesn't belong here. But they're kind of popping up in two places. And you know what? It's a little sad to see it, how it's going. And I feel it, I have no words for it. It's just, it's a hard thing to talk about.
Yeah. So quarantine was tough on everybody. It forced us all to go into hiding, pretty much all respectively, coop ourselves up, to use a phrase that would imply the correct feeling of being stuck. Things like, as I mentioned earlier, being in a sea of hundreds of New Yorkers, not able to breathe or see or smell anything but the hundreds of people around me. Like, to miss a moment like that means something's happened. Something's happened if you miss being packed like a sardine in New York City. And what happened was we were all forced to just live with ourselves, live on our own by ourselves for way longer than anyone was expecting, was ready for. Much like my dog, when he's in the house by himself for a day while we're out, and when we get back, lots of pent up energy, right? Now, I'm not saying it's the pent up energy that's causing people to act out of line, but this pent up energy and perhaps the time that people spent with themselves at home is bringing out a side of people that, if you knew existed already for a very long time in the minds of millions of people in this country, which is the side of people that sees Black people, frankly, as solely a form of entertainment, and would therefore, result in people justifying things like, can you imagine your bank teller drops your piggy bank, drops your coins all over the place? You're just like, wow, you suck at your job. You just spit on them. You just go and who the hell does that? Because someone, did something not great at their job. It's just, obviously these players are paid millions of dollars because they have to deal with a lot of stress that a lot of people don't. They make a lot of money that a lot of people don't, and all that. They're human beings. They're doing their job. To think that pouring popcorn on a player, to think that spitting on a player, I'm not saying that guy went there that night with that intention. The fact that in a split second, he felt that because he was a Knicks fan, Trae Young was right in front of him. Trae Young's been a little sassy with the Knicks fans. He thought that entitled him, that gave him the right to spit on Trae Young. Period. That's it. That's what he thought happened. The fact that he thinks that that's possible, the fact that he thinks that there's something that would allow that is very indicative of a huge problem, not just in this country, in this world, in regards to race. I don't think this is fans not knowing how to act, as a lot of people are saying. I think this is fans coming out and acting how they always wanted to. I'm not talking about fans, and for our listeners on the radio, I'm gesturing with my hands to refer to every sports fan. No, I'm not talking about every sports fan. I'm talking about that small group of crazies, frankly, that have these ideals that are racist, whether intended to be or not, that Black people are just below you and are to entertain. This is a big problem, and it's getting a lot of light on it right now, with fans back in the buildings and with people choosing to act out in this way. Only because I'm always putting a positive angle on things. I can only hope that this starts to help shed light on this issue, in whether it's good light or bad, it's light on this issue. And I hope we see progress from there. I hope we see change in arena rules, or what, like to get a 2-year ban for calling DeMarcus Cousins a racial slur. Like, you said that,
yeah.
and I almost laughed. Like, of course it was only 2 years for doing that, right?
Yeah.
Like of course it was only 2 years for doing that, because of course, and it needs to stop being that way. And that we know. The problem is making that turnaround happen. This is an event that, although unfortunate, and I say this singularly just to refer to the couple of cases that we've seen last couple of weeks of fan misbehavior, I hope that they at least bring the needed attention to this mindset. I'm wearing a Dreamville hoodie. J. Cole himself has lyrics about how white people see black people as like basically Pokemon that are either to evolve into a rapper, a basketball player, or a drug dealer. And that's just terrible. But it's showing itself on a national scale, on television. That's so embarrassing to show yourself as subscribing to that stereotype, that school of thinking. And people are doing it with a smile on their face in front of the whole country. That is the real problem. The problem is not cleaning up the popcorn. It's what that popcorn represents. So for all it's just popcorn people, for somehow, yes, they exist. It's just spit people. It's not just spit. And first of all, if it was just spit, that's besides the point. It's not just spit. It's not just popcorn. It's a whole lot more problems than that.
I think the spit thing, considering where we've just come out from or about to come out from, is pretty gross. And I think Trae Young has every right to be mad at that fan. Now, again, has the reputation. He's not known for diving into this stuff. He kind of just keeps his business on the back burner. He doesn't really let anyone into that sort of light. But you bring up a good point that we need to magnify it a little bit. And I appreciate people like Dwayne Wade, minority owner of the Utah Jazz, because he bought some shares in the team. He told that fan and he complimented the Jazz, like, I'm glad that we were able to kick him out, and that stuff doesn't belong here. I feel like the NBA can't do much about the popcorn stuff and the spit stuff, because it's not like hockey or football where they can, I guess, distance the fans and the players, and where they put the plexiglass. Or in the NFL, you're literally 4 or 5 feet up the ground and well away from the field of play and the bench. I don't know what more the NBA can do to stop this. I mean, extra security, but then you look at it as, if you want to go this route, as it's counterproductive because you're going like this the whole game. I can't see. That's like the other way to look at it. I don't know. Do you do that? Do you? I don't know the racial stuff. I don't know what they can do.
Here's what you do.
Jack, if you have a solution, I will hear.
Well, it's not a solution, but it's a start. It's a start. You need people in leadership positions like Danny Ainge not being dismissive.
Yeah, there you go.
In a city where their biggest icon, Bill Russell, refused to have his Hall of Fame retirement ceremony in front of fans because of what he endured as a black man, a black athlete in the city of Boston. You can't have GMs of teams just almost ridiculing the situation.
Yeah.
Especially with the city with such polarizing history around it. And Danny Ainge should know better as a guy who played, in 80s, one of the best Celtics squads. He's been around. He's got a long history with Boston. And to think that he doesn't know the impact of his comments and the history of Boston is really concerning.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. Leadership is what is preached in sports. And I guess something like this, though in the past, it wasn't really magnified, but now that it is, and you start to realize, wow, this is a really big problem. It
was always a problem. It was just allowed. It was allowed right. Because
the
people,
that's what I was looking for.
The people that players would turn to try to solve the problem would give the same type of answer that Danny Ainge just did.
Mhm.
proving that even if indirectly, and therefore pretty directly, they are part of the problems themselves.
I
As you
think,
start to
yeah.
see, more diverse brain trusts, front offices, ownership groups, I think you start to see some of these problems fade. Another problem is that there's a reason that we won't see ownership groups with women, with diversity, and that is because of just how behind those groups are in the sports world in the first place.
Mhm.
It's just imbalance that builds on imbalance that builds on imbalance that's used to perpetuate more imbalance, and it's great to get to a point where we're just like shining the brightest light possible right on this and being like, this is bad. Because if that's what it's going to take, I'll do it for every problem on this planet, every racial injustice, every, like, if magnifying it as large as possible and making people be not able to not talk about it is what it takes, then that's sadly what it takes, and I'll help contribute to all of those efforts.
Before I want to just jump to Naomi Osaka, but before we do, please, God, for all our viewers, just please behave. Like, you're going to see entertainers, essentially. Don't ruin it for everyone else, please. That's the message I'm going to put out there. Well, Naomi Osaka is also going to do a little something different. She has some beef with the media. If you can see the Instagram post, Alex Walls, our producer, will put it up. Basically, I'll sum it up. She's not going to be doing press throughout Roland Garros, which is one of the 4 world majors in tennis. And Naomi Osaka is citing mental health issues and how the press kind of kicks the athletes when they're down. And I sort of remember from The Last Dance, I don't remember which episode, but it's the one where Michael Jordan's in the finals versus the Suns. And he's getting bombarded by the press with his gambling thing, and his dad had to answer and all this mess. And David Aldridge said something that I remember that really stood out to me. He said that Magic Johnson had told him in '93, when that was all going on, that you guys are gonna drive him out of basketball if you keep picking on him. And Michael's was clearly tired of it. And Naomi, now this is a little different because she's just not going to speak to the press. I don't want to say that the press that cover tennis have built her up to just start kicking her down, but with everything that's kind of happened and stances that athletes have taken, I guess there's a lane for them to exploit and just kind of find the bad. But
I mean, look what happened with Serena in the New York Post.
Right. So you got
They
either one of you
legitimately racistly characterized her as caricaturized. It was like a caricature, but it was racistly drawn, like very blatantly, and portrayed her as like a crybaby. It's just, people take the chances they can get to tear these people down. Osaka is taking a stand. She's doing it because she thinks that athletes who are dealing with mental health problems should not have to do press. She's trying to make that statement. She put out a statement. She didn't put it out. She sent it to the people who run the tournament, that it's nothing against them. It's not personal, and that it just happens to be going on during their event, this protest of hers, because of the statement she's trying to make. She's going about this, for Black athletes they're told so often how to protest and how not to protest. She's going about this in the best way possible and trying to make a positive impact. You can't not respect it.
I 100% agree with you on that. Jack, I'll switch it over to you. I understand that they want to take a stand. That's totally fine. I applaud athletes for using their platform to do good. But my thing is, I don't want to say roll with the punches, but did we kind of sort of expect this to happen given the track record recently, I want to say, of the last 20 years or so, of how the media behaves when things like this happens? Do you see this as sort of a norm for them when things like this happen now? Have we come to expect that from mainstream media where they just bombard?
I mean, it's a case by case scenario, right? And would you rather have her not play, or would you rather have her play in the tournament and voluntarily choose not to speak to the media, accept and understand you're going to get fines, and urge, the organizations to put that money to a good place? I think that second option is what everyone wants. And I don't know what's going on in Naomi Osaka's life. I don't think anyone needs to know that. But if she says, I'm not comfortable speaking to the media and I understand the repercussions, I don't think anyone should have a problem with that.
Yeah, you know what? They're the ones that make the sports go. And then the NBA, LeBron makes the NBA go. Michael Jordan made the NBA go. In baseball, Mike Trout, Cody Bellinger, back then Derek Jeter, A-Rod, they made the sport go. And in football, the Patriots with Tom Brady and that whole thing, Patrick Mahomes, they make it go. So I guess with Naomi Osaka, she's starting to become that engine of tennis.
She
is that engine.
Currently is in the driver's seat for sure.
I'm a big Serena fan, but I mean, currently is.
I'm team Naomi and Corday.
You know what? You have to. I think you give them that leverage for something like this, and if it becomes detrimental to their personal well-being as compared to, oh, we need to make the millions, I think you should cut them some slack here. I feel that's most fair, in my opinion. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I think it's most fair to say, let's give them their space. I invite you guys to jump on that. Giving space is probably the best idea for that. And
I agree. I agree with respecting what they want and working with them is the most important. So it's not about hearing what they want and then deciding on a change that you think will be good. It's not about hearing what athletes want, and it's about the concept of wanting their feedback, wanting their input, and their just presence. That you talk all the time about how like so many companies that put out insensitive advertisements or anything would just not have done that if they had a diverse team. It's that same vibe. In general, with Naomi, I think I just should not to just repeat what I said earlier. I think this is good. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a symbol of something good. In the sense that she hopefully will be like a real bright beacon of hope for women's tennis for as long as she's involved. I've got faith in that for sure. After this break, we'll come back. We'll talk NHL. We've got a little bit of local involvement, so going to be getting into that. Not just we'll talk about who local involvement for who after this break as we get into the NHL upcoming Isles Bruins series here on One with WFUV Sports.
To support the WFUV Sports Department, visit support.wfuv.org to become a member or make a one-time donation. WFUV Sports, home to New York's longest-running sports call-in show and the flagship station of Fordham Athletics.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to WFUV Sports' One-on-One. I'm here with Jack Roche, who I will introduce again as a Bostonite ahead of this segment. It's not. That's not the. Oh, no, well, hold on. Now we're gonna get into this. It's not. Bostonite isn't a thing.
No,
That's not a thing. Where am I? I'm getting that for some. All right. Well, we have Bostonian Jack Roche back, of course, by my side here on One-on-One. Now to get into the upcoming series between the Boston Bruins and New York Islanders. We spoke a couple days ago about this series, and we essentially spoke about it as a competition between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the New York Islanders to have a shot to try to beat the Boston Bruins. The Isles come out on top. I mentioned your origins so intentionally because of the matchup here in New York versus Boston. As a Rangers guy myself, not going to be, ridiculously invested, but I will be invested. I won't be Rangers invested. New York versus Boston is a battle to monitor. Your opening thoughts on the Islanders being the team that the Bruins are going to match up against. Do you kind of feel like, is there even just a part of you that sees like two mice fighting over a worm and you're just a hawk waiting up on a branch for them to finish up so you can go clean? Do you have that type of confidence? How are we feeling?
Well, let me tell you, in addition to being from Boston, I also made quite a few trips to the Coliseum, made my trip out to Nassau as an Islanders beat reporter. So I wouldn't say that I'm completely, biased. I definitely would, I know who I think is going to win. But let me give you my immediate thoughts, right? They had 8 matchups in the regular season. Isles 5-2-1, right? They played the Bruins really tough this year. But those 3 losses, right? One of them came in OT, all came after the acquisition of Taylor Hall, who has completely transformed that Bruin team and really revitalized his career. Struggled in Buffalo, only 2 goals in 37 games. And in his 16-game stint, he put up 8 goals, 14 points. And in that first round, he scored 2 goals of his own. I think what the Islanders did really well against the Penguins is they shut down that front line. They held Sidney Crosby to just a single goal. And it's what they were successful at against the Bruins in their first 5 matchups. But the Bruins don't have to solely depend on Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, and David Pastrnak anymore, because Taylor Hall has made that second line a force to be reckoned with. They are dangerous. And to be quite honest, ever since that trade deadline, they've quite possibly been the hottest team in the NHL. So
Well, numbers tell the story there pretty easily, in
Mhm.
my opinion. And the number that I had in mind was 31. You know, that number represents their positive goal differential since that trade. I mean, plus 31 goals. That's the story right there, man. Bruins are a hockey machine right now. Whether however you want to put it, that's how it's going. My personal favorite, I have to get this in. Little shout out to Finland. Tuukka Rask. I mean,
Let's talk about Tuukka, man. We got
because
talk about Tuukka.
when playing the Islanders this year, it's been 8 matchups. You said that we had. He was I'm trying to come up with a bad pun. I can't. An earthquake, perhaps, to break up the island. I mean, a stopper.
Yeah, I mean, the Isles had success against the Penguins' Tristan Jarry, who is no slouch, very good goalie, but Tuukka Rask is a stud in the regular season. He's 34 years old, still playing at the top of his, he's as good as he's ever been. And a guy with 55 career playoff wins, 927 save percentage in the playoffs. That is tough. And you know what?
936 in 29 career games against New York.
Yeah, I mean, he the Bruins have always, ever since they won the cup back in 2011, have had great goaltending. And it looks like the Islanders are becoming sort of a situation like that. I mean, Ilya Sorokin really proved himself in that first series. They went back and forth between him and Varlamov, and I'd be shocked if Sorokin didn't get the start for the first game. But I think if the Islanders do want to be successful, if they do want to continue the run that they've had, they're going to need to depend on both of those guys. Maybe Sorokin's youth, is put on display in game 1, and they need to make a change. So I do think that you should expect to see both of these guys in that series.
Yeah, it's, to talk about Tuukka, like let me describe Boston as a machine.
Mm-hmm.
When that machine also has a near impenetrable force field, it's man, that's tough. So,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to take down Boston, you need to be punching the whole time. You need to be hitting back the whole time, and you have to also be taking their very powerful hits. It's not an easy game to win, even just from a mental standpoint, right? Like to go up against that type of powerhouse is intimidating when you just enter their home arena.
Mm-hmm.
There's power in winning and success and dominance, and the Bruins have done just that since acquiring Hall, as you mentioned. I mean, it's going to be fascinating to see whether or not the Islanders can overcome them. Personally, I'm rooting for them to, because I do enjoy a good underdog story. I do. And it's New York. Knicks are hot. Man, I again, Rangers fan, but my boy, with like my middle school math teacher, Mr. Messler, might cry tears of joy if the Islanders won this series, and like that would make me happy. So rooting for New York in this series, even though they are going to have quite the challenge up against Boston. I mean, it's the playoffs. You're here, and once you're in the playoffs, like I was saying about the NBA, got to look at teams as playoff teams, as teams that belong where they are. Coming into this series, yes, there's a favorite. The Islanders are here. They are there. They are in the series. They have advanced in the bracket. They have written their names in Sharpie in that next round. Why not make some noise? I mean, that got to be their mindset going into it. You think that they can? You think that even if the Bruins win, that the Islanders can really make some noise, or are you projecting smooth sailing?
I mean, it's playoff hockey. You just mentioned it. I think it was the Kings in the early 2010s went on a run where as the 8th seed, they knocked off 1, 2, 3, and then played the number 1 seed in the Stanley Cup and won it. We mentioned the Bruins' strengths, and Tuukka Rask has really kept them in games that they don't always deserve to win. We mentioned how the Bruins offense has, changed so drastically ever since the addition of Taylor Hall. I think they went from 2.7 goals per game to 3.3, which is incredible. But man, the Islanders have got talent. Barry Trotz is a great coach, and I think if you get guys like Pajot and Palmieri to slow them down, they've got it. It's playoff hockey, man. Anything can happen.
I want to believe. I do. I want to believe. I want underdogs to make some noise. New York, man, I'm here for it. As I said, I'm more than here for it. They're here. They're in the arena. They're about to get punched real hard. Can they take it? Can they deliver back a bigger blow? We'll see. Very exciting to be able to monitor. Probably for you, a little nerve-wracking, but exciting series ahead for you to watch as well, just because of your connections to both teams, as you mentioned. I want to take now to bring us into our final break before we bring Thomas Aiello back on for a little game. I'll let him introduce. I think when I'm on one-on-one, we've done games for the last segment, and it's been incredibly fun every time. So gonna run it back right after this break. Don't miss it. Jack Roche, Thomas Aiello, and I will be right back for WFUV Sports.
Be sure to follow WFUV Sports on all of our social media platforms. At WFUV Sports on Twitter, at WFUV_sports on Instagram, and WFUV Sports on Facebook and YouTube. WFUV Sports, home to New York's longest-running sports call-in show and the flagship station of Fordham Athletics.
Welcome back to WFUV's one-on-one, New York's longest sports running call-in show. Thomas Aiello, I'm back here for the final headline segment with Jack Roach and Chris Persianen. Now, we have a couple of housekeeping things before we get to our advertised game. The first one is via Shams and Adrian Wojnarowski on Twitter. NBA legend Mark Eaton of the Utah Jazz has unfortunately passed away. The former one-time All-Star, one of the most intimidating defensive players I've ever seen, not play it in person, but just on film at 7'4". So Mark Eaton has passed on to hopefully a better place. And it's also Carmelo Anthony's birthday. So happy birthday to Knick legend Carmelo Anthony. And in this here Bible, as I brought up at the beginning of the show, Carmelo Anthony has his own chapter in chapter 32, known as the trade. So if you ever get 100 Things Knicks fans should know and do before they die by Alan Hahn, you can read all about Melo there. Our condolences also to the Eaton family as well. So a couple housekeeping things, but we are going to play a little game. As Chris said, we're going to call buy or sell. And I'm going to bring up 2 or 3-ish teams per conference at the top of each NBA conference in the playoffs.
Oh, I love it.
In our pool,
Oh, I love this because this lets me get out all my crazy agenda takes on all the players around the league that you guys like more or dislike more than me. And you guys are going to hate every word that comes out of my mouth, and I cannot wait. Let's do it.
So Chris is excited. Jack Roach is smiling. I'm grinning as well. So in our Eastern pool, we have the Bucks, we have the 76ers, and we have the Brooklyn Nets. And then in our Western pool, the Lakers, we also have the Phoenix Suns and the Utah Jazz. So the top 3 from each conference. Now we're going to start in the East. Jack Roach, your Celtics taking on the Brooklyn Nets. Last night they did steal a game, but buy or sell on the Nets. How far do you see them going?
Listen, it took a 50-point performance out of Jason Tatum for them to stay in a game. I love my Celtics, but they haven't looked right all year. They're not going to put it together when Jaylen Brown is off the court. So I'm going to have to – I'm buying the Nets. I'm not buying the Celtics comeback. As much as it pains me to say that, I really would even be shocked if they won another game.
Chris?
If you are – how do I put this, man? It's like if Brooklyn Nets stock is available and it's affordable,
it's
no matter what you think about the team, it's value if it's affordable. If you can afford Brooklyn Nets stock, it is valuable. It is at a place of value because Brooklyn Nets stock should be unaffordable. It should be at a spot where you cannot buy in because nobody has that type of capital to buy in this late. I mean, I did, in fact, hop on late. So my stock, if people who were there before they even got Harden was worth around 200, maybe I didn't buy it until it hit around 600. Brooklyn Nets stock is in the tens of thousands now. So, we're there. I'm buying. That's it. That's it. I don't even think they'll win the ring this year, but their value, if they're affordable, I'll buy them.
I think the Nets are going to go all the way, but it also is a big help when Kemba Walker is only scoring 6 points in the playoffs and his point averages are dropping to under 14. So that definitely helps them. But I'm going to buy the Nets for obvious reasons. And we're going to jump over to the West because we're going to do a little bit more rapid fire here. Buy or sell Utah Jazz. I know that this has been a talking point all year. Chris, I'm going to start with you on this one. Buy or sell the Musical Men?
I mean, all right, I'll say this. Coming into the series against Memphis, I said Memphis would give them a better run for their money than anyone was projecting because Memphis is like Washington in that they can stay in games and get their punches off. They're not great. They can stay in games and land some punches.
Right? It's just simple.
However, Utah is going to win this series. Stock is looking pretty good right now. People I've heard allegedly from a couple places You're supposed to buy low and then sell high. Now's the time to sell your Jazz stock. Get it out before they get eliminated.
Jack?
Clear the portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 5 teams that I think have a legitimate shot at winning the championship, and the Utah Jazz are not one of them. I see Chris trying to do the math. I'm not. I won't be so explicit, but I think there are 2 teams in the West and 3 teams in the East. So that's where I stand. I just don't think the Jazz have enough offensive firepower. They're a well-constructed team, but I'm not all in.
It's a tough one. It's a talking point all year. Look, Donovan Mitchell's great. Shout out to Connecticut. He's also a Mets fan. So Chris, you get a buddy there, but
His dad works in the organization.
Yeah,
LFGM.
I'm going to sell high, and I'm spamming that sell.
Smart.
Profit as much as I can. Now I want to get to 2 more teams. The Los Angeles Lakers, they're playing the Suns, so this is a little intertwined. Buy or sell? Chris, you can go first on this one.
Lakers, man. Lakers are going to zombie walk their way to the Western Conference Finals. And people are going to be like, did we seriously let LeBron be the freaking underdog again? Did we do this again? Did we let LeBron play us into thinking he's the underdog again? And the answer is yes, you did. Because he went against Steph Curry in the play-in, and it was, I don't know. I don't know if he can beat him. He got a whole Anthony Davis on his team. Yes, he's going to beat them. Going up against Phoenix in the first round, you guys know I love Devin Booker. I have a Lob City Chris Paul jersey. Those are my 2 guys, like non-Knick players. Those are 2 of my favorite guys in the whole league to watch play. They're on the same team now. I am like the biggest secret Suns fan. I thought that AD, when it came down to it, would outduel Ayton down low, and that LeBron would help them win this series, get them to the finals, and I had them as my pick to win the title this year. Bye.
Jack Roach?
Before I answer, I want to hear what the last team is.
You want your last team?
I want to hear it because I have 5 teams that I think can win.
Well, I said for the East, it was the Nets and the Sixers, and our last team is the Bucks.
Oh, they got it, man. They're firing
Bye.
all cylinders.
Whoa.
Right?
Bye.
Ready?
Whoa.
Here are the teams.
Little dip with DiVincenzo injury. I'm buying that dip. Buy that dip.
Oh my God. Ready? The East, there are 3 teams. Sixers, the Nets, and the Bucks. All 3 of those teams have a chance at making the finals and quite possibly winning. I don't see anyone in the West making the finals other than the Lakers or the Clippers.
Clippers.
I know the Clippers
Knew it. I knew your teams from the jump. Second you said 5, I knew who it was.
Hot, but man, the talent is just too overwhelming.
Because it boils down to who has LeBron, who has Kawhi, who has Giannis, who has Embiid, who has
Rajon
I'm not going to
Rondo.
trust Embiid.
They got Rajon Rondo.
Oh,
I'm not going to trust Embiid.
Oh, come on.
Oh, don't you know I'm a JoJo guy. Don't do that.
This guy Rondo, man. He's
Rondo.
everywhere.
I knew I think we talked about it on Nightly. The Clippers won that trade real easily. Lou Will's cool. Rondo's better in the playoffs.
Rondo's
That's
better
all.
for what they
That's
need.
all.
Especially for that team. They don't need – I don't think they need that spark off the bench as much as they need a guy that can – I mean, you see him getting in Rick Carlisle's head right now, you know? Like his impact it goes so far beyond the stat sheet.
This Lakers team is built by LeBron James, who knows how to build a championship team. This Mavericks team is like, if they're lucky, they're going to be a championship team. This Clippers team is like a robotic AI built championship team that, yes, it's a championship team, but because of the weird fits, The Bucks, you love them. The defense, Drew, Chris, Giannis. If Chris is your closer, I can see how they lose to LeBron. The Sixers, Ben Simmons. Number 2, he gets relegated to the dunker spot in the playoffs because he can't do anything. Now it's just Embiid. Is Embiid really good? Yes. Is Embiid enough against LeBron and AD? No. Case closed. Brooklyn Nets, there's your debate. There's your Lakers Nets debate. And I take Los Angeles because of Anthony Davis. Not because of Anthony Davis, but because it's LeBron James with Anthony Davis finishing plays for him That can beat anybody. It did it last year. I got it doing it again this year, especially if they're playing Brooklyn. I want a one-word answer from you two, Lakers or Nets, before we wrap up.
Lakers.
Nets.
Roche?
Lakers.
Aiello?
Nets.
We'll
Nets.
see. We'll debate off the air because it is unfortunately time now to wrap up. This was One-on-One, a production of WFUV Sports. You can check out clips on YouTube as they go up. You can check out One-on-One Nightly, Twitter, YouTube Live. Thank you, as always, to the great Alex Woles, yoding our audio and everything behind the scenes, my new favorite verb. This was One-on-One. Thank you for sharing your time with us this evening, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend. For WFUV Sports, for Jack Roche, for Thomas Aiello, and for Alexander Woles, I'm Chris Persianen, thanking you all for stopping by.